Chapter 320. At the entrance of the village, Yu Qianqiu broke a branch and found a rock to sit on while waiting for Miss Mu. He was drawing circles on the ground out of boredom, but he was thinking about going to the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea. While he was distracted, congratulatory voices came from inside the village. He threw away the broken stick and stood up. It turned out to be Miss Mu's subordinates congratulating her. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled. It's not like I'm going there to enjoy my life. What's there to congratulate me for not being a demon king who dominates an area, but going to farm? The long sword on his back popped out with a clang. Yu Qianqiu stepped on the flying sword and flew into the sky, heading in the direction of the 1,000-mile lake. Inside the village, Miss Mu looked up and hurriedly waved goodbye to her subordinates. Her pink dress fluttered in the air and flew around the village. She looked like she was still in love. The last pink figure quickly chased after the distant flowing light. The group of people below looked up and saw her off. I've kept you waiting. Please forgive me, Miss Mu apologized. With her cultivation, she caught up with Yu Qianqiu in a short while. Yu Qianqiu looked back at Miss Mu, who was flying in the air. Her pink dress fluttered in the wind, making her look like a fairy flying in the sky. It was very pleasing to the eye. He looked at her a few more times and said, "The Great Way is heartless, but people have feelings. You are a demon and have gone through many hardships to transform into a human. If you don't have any human feelings, why did you transform into a human? It's a good thing that you know how to say goodbye. Otherwise, what's the difference between you and the plants, birds, and beasts below? It doesn't matter if I wait a little longer." After saying that, he was stunned. Had he been with Bai Changchun for too long? Why did he start talking about principles? So mushy. Madame Mu was slightly taken aback when she heard this. She looked at the lush greenery below, and her expression was full of thought. After a long while, she replied thoughtfully, "Thank you for your teachings, mister. I'm not qualified to teach you. I was just saying." Yu Qianqiu laughed at himself. Lady Mu smiled. She kept flying half a body behind him. It wasn't that she wasn't as fast as him, but she didn't dare to overtake him out of respect. Not long after, bright sunlight shone through the gap in the dark clouds in front of them, symmetrically reflecting the sparkling lake below. In the blink of an eye, the two of them flew out of the dark space and bathed in the sunlight. The surface of the lake faintly reflected their shadows as they flew past. Miss Mu raised her hand to shield her eyes. The sudden appearance of sunlight made it a little difficult for her to adapt. When she withdrew her hand, she was already looking around with a face full of joy. The dim world behind her had gradually left her. The sky was azure, the clouds were white, the sunlight was golden, and the wind had the smell of sunlight and water. It was refreshing. From time to time, fish would swim out of the lake. Miss Mu's expression was full of infatuation. Her pair of beautiful eyes seemed a little inadequate. It was as if she wanted to take in everything around her into her eyes, afraid that it would be a dream and that when she woke up, she would be in that dark world again. Tears, which had not been seen for 1,000 years, gradually filled her eyes. She accidentally failed to hold them back, and two sparkling petals flew along her cheeks and were carried away by the wind. Not long after the two of them flew away, two subtle ding-dong sounds rang out on the surface of the lake. Immediately, a few fish came and kissed the surface of the water, causing layers of ripples. He didn't know if these fishes could taste something called bitterness or bitterness. Finally, Miss Mu couldn't control her tears anymore. Something called happiness desperately pushed the salty tears out of her eyes. No matter how high her cultivation was, she couldn't control them, and they dripped away with the wind. Yu Qianqiu suddenly felt something and looked back. He was stunned. Before this girl came, she was a demon king who dominated a region. Why was she crying? And it was that kind of silent cry. It wasn't a sin for a man to cry, but it was even more so for a woman to cry. Yu Qianqiu shook his head slightly. He finally understood why these demons and ghosts wanted to come to Obedient Island. At least, Miss Mu's silent crying was one of the reasons. He didn't say anything, but consciously slowed down a little, so that this silly woman could squander her tears a little more. It wasn't that he was kind and sympathetic to her, but he was afraid that she would see the old guy with tears in her eyes. At that time, The old guy would definitely think that he bullied her and did that to her. This was the explanation that Yu Qianqiu had for his actions. However, Miss Mu's tears seemed to be endless. After a long time, they were still flowing. Sigh. Yu Qianqiu sighed and turned back, saying resentfully, Miss Mu, you accompanied me to bathe and massaged me willingly, didn't you? I didn't bully you, did I? Ah. Miss Mu came back to her senses and asked in surprise, Why do you ask? Then why are you crying? Yu Qianqiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, We're about to reach Obedient Island. Are you going to see my master with tears in your eyes? If my master sees you like this, he will definitely think that I did something shameful to you. I forgot myself. Miss Mu hurriedly wiped away her tears, but she couldn't cry anymore. At the thought of seeing Bai Changchun, who had shaken the entire demon domain, she immediately felt a little uneasy. As time passed, she was so nervous that even breathing became a little difficult. Unknowingly, the distance between them and Yu Qianqiu had increased by one body's length. But what would come, and it was useless to be afraid. An island in the lake in the distance had already appeared in their sight. The two of them sped over and instantly arrived in the sky above Obedient Island. Miss Mu followed Yu Qianqiu and landed. Yu Qianqiu's relaxed appearance became more and more formal as soon as he landed. Then he walked toward the houses in the center of the island. Even he was like this, causing Miss Mu, who was following behind, to become even more nervous. She didn't dare to breathe loudly and timidly followed. The island was so quiet that there seemed to be no one. Yu Qianqiu walked to Bai Changchun's door and looked back at Miss Mu, who was standing a few meters away. He bowed to Bai Changchun, who was sitting cross-legged in the house, and said, Master, this disciple has brought the person who planted the deficient flame profound fruit. He is just outside, waiting to see you. Come in. Bai Changchun slowly opened his eyes. This ancient voice immediately caused Miss Mu's body to tremble. Although she was the demon king of Bai Changchun, she had never seen Bai Changchun before. However, she had heard this voice many times, and it matched with this voice. Yu Qianqiu waved at her and said, Come in. Master wants to see you. Miss Mu looked at Yu Qianqiu in panic, then lowered her head to look at the ground. She carefully followed Yu Qianqiu in, not even daring to raise her head. Feeling that she was in the right place, she immediately knelt down and kowtowed, saying, Little demon Miss Mu pays respect to Immortal Master. Bai Changchun casually glanced at her, then said to Yu Qianqiu, who was standing next to him, You have to teach her about the deficient flame profound fruit. You have to go to the South Sea as soon as possible. You can all leave. After saying these two simple words, he closed his eyes again. Yu Qianqiu, who was at the side, scratched his head and said, Master, I have something to report to you. I killed a demon king named Yu Fengjiao when I left the island, and Miss Mu is also a demon king. Got it, I will handle it, Bai Changchun said with his eyes closed. Yu Qianqiu thought that he had not finished speaking, but he did not have a temper. He bowed and said, This disciple will take his leave. After saying that, he waved at Miss Mu, indicating that she should leave with him. Miss Mu hurriedly kowtowed and said goodbye. She finally saw the appearance of the old man in front of her when she got up. She did not expect that such a thin and hale old man was the punishment envoy of the demon ghost domain. After coming out, Miss Mu's heart, which had almost stopped beating, began to beat wildly. Yu Qianqiu looked at the sun in the sky and waved in front of him, saying, Miss Mu, come with me. We still have things to do, so we must not delay. The former demon king was like an obedient little girl. And just like that, she was abducted by him to farm. In the garden of the deficient flame profound fruit, Yu Qianqiu did not give her any time to rest. He used practical actions to teach her how to take care of these things, and also told her some things that she should pay attention to on the island. In fact, it was not a difficult matter. After a while, Yu Qianqiu threw a large pile of spirit stones to her. This meant that from today onwards, the heavy responsibility of managing the deficient flame profound fruit was thrown to her, and he could wander around by himself. Then, the two of them picked a place that Miss Mu felt was suitable and dug a deep pit. Miss Mu took out a miniature magnolia tree, which was her original form. After placing it in the pit, she cast a spell, and in an instant, It grew into a tall magnolia tree. It was deeply rooted in the ground, and when the breeze blew, the slender and graceful magnolia on the treetop swayed with the wind, emitting a delicate fragrance. By the time they were done, it was already late. Yu Qianqiu took off his clothes and jumped into the lake. After tossing around for a while, he went back to sleep. He was going to leave the demon ghost domain tomorrow, so he felt that he had to recuperate first. Miss Mu, on the other hand, stood under the magnolia tree all night, looking at the sparkling stars that covered the night sky. Chapter 321. The next day, Yu Qianqiu went to Bai Changchun and asked for directions to the South Sea's purple bamboo forest. After leaving, he flew south on his flying sword. Lady Mu bowed to send him off. As a ray of light flashed by, Yu Qianqiu flew at his maximum speed. He flew across the vast 1,000-mile lake and entered a dark and unfamiliar land. A cultivator flying on a flying sword suddenly entered this place, immediately alarming the demons and ghosts below. Ferocious heads appeared from the forest. Pairs of greedy eyes and the sound of saliva licking and swallowing could be heard from time to time. To the demons and ghosts here, human flesh was a legendary delicacy. They all wanted to taste it. Knowing that they couldn't catch up, the demons and ghosts unwillingly hid themselves again. There were also some who had some cultivation and some brains. When they saw that there was such an unbridled person who dared to roam the demon-ghost realm, and realized that this person was coming from the direction of the 1,000-mile lake, they were slightly startled and immediately retreated. However, there were also many that were blind. Suddenly, a group of arrogant creatures jumped out from below and chased after the person. More and more people followed. Bold human cultivator, you dare to trespass into my demon realm? Quickly stop. How bold of you, quickly stop. Quickly stop, don't even think of escaping. No one is allowed to compete with me. I'm definitely going to eat this meat. More and more shouts came from behind him, and Yu Qianqiu turned around to take a look. There were probably over 100 demons chasing after him, all of them saying that they wanted to eat him. Great Demon King. Yu Qianqiu's eyes were cold. He coldly snorted and didn't slow down. He continued to fly forward. The commotion in the sky alarmed more and more demons. Chase, chase, chase. Hundreds of demons chasing after one person was truly a spectacular scene. Those that jumped out to chase were those with higher cultivation than Yu Qianqiu. The more they chased, the closer they got. Yu Qianqiu coldly glanced back and sneered. He formed hand seals and an azure light flashed around his body, flying at high speed with him. Suddenly, the sound of wind could be heard from both sides. More than 10 figures had already leaped past him and blocked his path in the air, all of them revealing sinister smiles. How dare you stop me? You're courting death. Yu Qianqiu bellowed, and the hundreds of green flying swords around him stopped dancing. They immediately formed into a rectangular shape and spread out in all directions, glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. What a bold child. He dares to barge into the demon region with a pile of scrap metal. A monster that looked neither human nor ghost rushed towards Yu Qianqiu as soon as he finished speaking. The other figures did not want to be left behind. They all shouted, "Don't snatch it, it's mine," and the like as they pounced on him. The demons dodged the sword formation and pounced forward. Yu Qianqiu shouted again, "You're courting death." With a loud explosion, the hundreds of flying swords exploded. Monstrous flames burned fiercely, and the faint green light permeated the heaven and earth, quickly devouring the demons that barged into the sword formation. The demons that were trapped in the sword formation did not even have time to escape. More than 10 miserable screams sounded at the same time. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 demons were killed. Yu Qianqiu was still flying on his sword. He did not slow down at all. He wanted to take advantage of this business trip to settle some personal matters. Naturally, he was in a hurry. Just as he passed through the green flames, he formed a few hand seals. The flames behind him quickly shrank and turned back into flying swords. However, it seemed like there was one less sword. The hundreds of demons that were chasing behind were shocked by the movement in front. Half of them ran away in fright, but the other half were still chasing. It seemed like the temptation of human flesh was too great. However, no one dared to come out. They only chased after him, hoping to find an opportunity to attack. At this moment, a dull angry roar came from afar. The voice rolled over like thunder. "How dare you? Who is trespassing into my territory to kill?" Yu Qianqiu squinted, and saw more than a dozen figures flying over in a formation of wild geese. Their speed was frightening. "What a good king! You actually dare to call yourself king in front of me. It seems that the demon domain is becoming more and more unruly." Yu Qianqiu sneered. He did not slow down and flew straight towards the approaching people. The demons chasing behind Yu Qianqiu suddenly became spirited. Someone shouted, "The demon king is coming. Everyone, block him. Don't let him escape. Offer him to the demon king for a reward." The demon monarch leading the way was one of the demon monarchs that Yu Qianqiu had met in Ladywood's village, and he had even offered a gift to Yu Qianqiu. The demon king had a profound cultivation. Before Yu Qianqiu could see him clearly, he had already seen Yu Qianqiu. The situation could be imagined. The demon king suddenly stopped in the air. His eyes widened and his jaw almost dropped. When he came back to his senses, he shouted anxiously, "All of you stop!" The dozen or so people he had brought were all demon cultivators at the late stage of the crossing tribulation. However, they did not know Yu Qianqiu. When they heard this, they all stopped in confusion. They divided into 2 rows in the air, and lined up on the left and right of the demon king. The demons behind Yu Qianqiu were still shouting excitedly. When the demon king heard this, his body trembled uncontrollably. He bowed to Yu Qianqiu and said, "Little demon Kui who greets Mr. Yu." The 2 rows of subordinates on his left and right were shocked. It turned out that this young man was Yu Qianqiu. They quickly glanced at the bastards who were yelling about killing, and their hearts trembled. They bowed to Yu Qianqiu, who was flying over, and said, "Greetings, Mr. Yu." Yu Qianqiu just happened to break into the 2 rows and finally stopped in front of the demon king. Nearly 100 flying swords fused into his body. The group of demons that were chasing after them also noticed that something was wrong. They all stopped tens of meters away and looked at each other. Yu Qianqiu turned around and glanced at them. He slowly turned back and said coldly, "Kuehu, you've seen what you need to see, right? How dare you? I won't say anything more. Don't let any of these demons who are chasing me live. If any of them escape, you can go to Obedient Island and ask for my master's forgiveness. What are you hesitating for? Are you still not going to carry it out?" Kuehu was awakened by Zhongyu's last shout. He immediately realized there was still a chance. He waved his arms and ordered, "Kill. Don't let any of them live." Then, he raised his head and let out a deafening roar. Responses immediately came from all directions. The long roars were coming closer and closer. He was obviously gathering people. Although the people he brought with him had high cultivation, there was a chance that some of them would slip through the net when facing hundreds of demons. At this moment, he didn't dare to be careless. If he really made a mistake and had to ask for forgiveness from the torture master, he might as well kill him. His subordinates naturally understood that this was a chance to redeem themselves. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was easy for the torture master to implicate others, and there was no reason for him to do so. With a teleportation, they dashed into the hundreds of demons and slaughtered them wantonly. With their cultivation at the final stage of the tribulation passing stage, they were like tigers entering a flock of sheep. "Demon King, please forgive us. Demon King, please forgive us." Cries of sorrow sounded. However, Kuehu's face was gloomy. He didn't feel any sympathy for them. These bastards had almost consigned him to eternal damnation. How could he not feel hatred? He wanted to tear these troublemakers apart with his own hands. Yu Qianqiu turned around and glanced coldly at the killing scene behind him. He said in a deep voice, "I have something to do under my master's orders. I can't be delayed. Kuehu, you will lead the way to the south. Anyone who dares to stop me will be killed." "I understand." Kuehu cupped his fists and bowed deeply. He then shouted, "Two of you follow me and lead the way for Mr. Zhong." With the order, 2 figures teleported over and flew south with Kuehu in a triangular formation. Yu Qianqiu followed behind them on his sword. At this moment, many people flew over from all directions and quickly joined the battle. Chapter 322. At first, Kuei-hu and the other two demons flew quite fast. However, when they realized that the distance between them and Yu Qianqiu was getting farther and farther, they slowed down a lot anxiously. They formed a triangle around Yu Qianqiu, protecting him in the middle, and kept a vigilant eye on their surroundings. The three demons didn't want to see something stupid and offend Yu Qianqiu. That would be hard to explain. Yu Qianqiu naturally understood the three demons' intentions, but he was still a little depressed. Who asked him to be so weak? His flying speed was too slow, and they didn't do anything wrong. Although he was escorted by three demon kings, trouble gradually came as soon as he crossed Kuei-hu's territory. Not everyone knew Kuei-hu and the other two demons, especially since the four of them didn't fly very fast. In addition, the appearance of a human like Yu Qianqiu immediately attracted the covetous eyes of many demons, and pairs of greedy eyes appeared on the ground. From time to time, a few uninvited guests would jump out to ask questions, or some self-righteous fellows would try to snatch a piece of meat from Yu Qianqiu. But how could this piece of meat be eaten so easily? The three demons had long received Yu Qianqiu's order to kill without mercy. Anyone who came, whether they were looking for trouble or not, would be killed without hesitation. They would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. Usually, the three demons would have to give face to the local demon king when they trespassed into someone else's territory. But this time they didn't worry about offending anyone. They killed whoever blocked their way without mercy. With Yu Qianqiu around, they believed that the local demon king wouldn't dare to say anything if he found out. He would probably even praise them for killing them. Think about it, under such circumstances, how many people could block the joint attack of three experts at the end of the tribulation passing stage? The three demons fought in front of them, attracting more and more demons and ghosts. However, Yu Qianqiu didn't feel that their flying speed was affected in the slightest. Once the three demons attacked, they would immediately take the opponent's life, not allowing any demons or ghosts to affect Yu Qianqiu in the slightest. This service was perfect. Kuei-hu, you've gone too far, daring to barge into this king's territory and kill the innocent. A thunderous roar came out of nowhere, shaking the dark clouds in the sky. From afar, a few silhouettes shot over with a whistling sound. With a bitter smile, Kuei-hu turned around and said, "Mr. the Golden Howler, the demon king that is in charge of this place is here. Tell him to scram and stop bothering me." Yu Qianqiu shouted in a deep voice. He had thought that with his current status, not many people would dare to stop him, and this trip should be smooth sailing. Who would have thought that all of them would proclaim themselves as kings in front of him? He was a little angry when he heard that. They didn't slow down, and Kuei-hu, who was flying in the lead, shouted, "Brother Jean, get out of the way. We will escort Mr. Yu forward. Anyone who stands in our way will be killed." His voice was also not soft, and it spread out in all directions. As soon as he finished speaking, the two sides had already arrived. The big man with golden hair was shocked when he saw Yu Qianqiu. He quickly shouted to the people around him, "Get out of the way." Then he bowed and said, "Greetings, Mr. Yu." The others were also shocked. Of course, they had heard of Yu Qianqiu, so they quickly bowed as well. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the Golden Howler, snorted, and shouted to Kuei-hu, "Don't stop. Don't mind him." When they passed by each other, Kuei-hu smiled apologetically at the Golden Howler. The four of them did not slow down at all, but the Golden Howler was scared by Yu Qianqiu's snort and words. When he realized what was going on, he shouted to the people around him, "What are you waiting for? Come with me to send Mr. Yu off." They spent a lot of mana in the air, and teleported a few times to catch up with Yu Qianqiu's flying team. The Golden Howler bowed as he flew. "I didn't know it was Mr. Yu. Please forgive me. What can I do for you? I hope you can give me a chance to redeem myself." Yu Qianqiu coldly swept a glance at him, too lazy to bother with him. As a result, Golden Howler broke out in a cold sweat. He hurriedly flew to Kuei-hu for help. Kuei-hu seemed to be a friend of Golden Howler, so he said vaguely, "Sir, you are working under the order of the torture enforcer. When you passed through my territory, there were hundreds of small demons who offended you. I have ordered my men to kill them all. But I didn't expect there were so many ignorant demons in your territory. I had to kill them on your behalf. Please forgive me." Working under the order of the torture envoy, the Golden Howler's golden fur was shaking. He said, "Good job. Brother Kue, you are helping me. I won't blame you. Is there anything I can do for you?" He was not stupid. Since Yu Qianqiu ignored him, he went to Kuei-hu, the leader of the team, and asked for his life to redeem himself. Kuei-hu was cooperative. He pointed to the front and said, "I don't want to kill anyone in your territory. If you really want to help, why don't you lead your men to the south? That way you won't disturb Mr. Yu." Good idea, good idea. Brother Kuei is right. I can't let Mr. Yu be disturbed in my territory. The Golden Howler waved his hand and said, "Follow me. Clear the road to the south. No one is allowed to fly except Mr. Yu's group. Anyone who disobeys will be killed." His words were full of murderous intent. It seemed he was talking to Yu Qianqiu. The few demons followed the Golden Howler and flew forward. But before they got far, they ran into someone who wanted to slap his face. Didn't he say no one was allowed to fly? 3 demons were flying over. When they saw the Golden Howler, they bowed and bowed to him, which made the Golden Howler scream in anger. He waved his arms, and his palms instantly became like 2 gigantic bare paws, golden fur shining brightly. With a loud bang, the 2 giant palms clapped together and immediately smashed the leading demon into meat paste. The remaining 2 monsters were torn to pieces by Golden Growler's subordinates without any reason. Blood sprayed through the air. The Golden Howler roared and led the other monsters without stopping. They quickly flew to the south, and issued warnings everywhere they went. Just like that, Hansen flew south, passing through one territory after another. He flew from day to night, and from night to day. Along the way, he encountered things similar to what happened in Golden Growler's territory. As a result, the Demon Kings and Ghost Kings passing by the territory were all startled. In the end, there was a group of Demon Kings and Ghost Kings escorting Yu Qianqiu. There were over 100 of them, and the commotion was truly huge. However, Yu Qianqiu's face was dark. He didn't say anything, which made the Demon Kings and Ghost King nervous. After 2 days of flying, they finally arrived at the southern border of the demon region. Yu Qianqiu knew they couldn't cross the border. Otherwise they would be killed, so he asked everyone to land. At this time, Yu Qianqiu smiled and said to the demons and ghosts, "Thank you for sending me off. The outside world is not a place you can go. Please go back." Seeing that Yu Qianqiu didn't seem to want to pursue the mistakes of the territories, they were relieved. They bowed and said, "Sir, have a safe journey. We will take our leave now." Yu Qianqiu nodded and said nothing. He rode his sword and flew to the bright world outside. Once he was out of the demon region, he traveled for 100 miles. Suddenly, he saw waves crashing on the shore and seagulls flying. In front of him was a vast sea with blue waves. He landed directly on a clean beach in the middle of the jagged rocks, and looked around furtively. He took out a silver ball and stuffed it into the crevice of a rock. Then he swayed around and looked around. He had been away from the secular world for nearly 2 months. He didn't know what had happened outside. He was a little anxious and wanted to go back for a long time. However, he guessed that since Bai Changchun could control the entire demon region, he might be discovered if he suddenly disappeared in the demon region. With the idea of safety first, he hurried on this journey without stopping. He was so far away from the demon region. He felt that there should be no problem. He suddenly flew up on his sword and plunged straight into the sea. The waves splashed, but he didn't come out. This incident reminded the Demon Kings and Ghost King that if someone in their territory provoked Yu Qianqiu again, it would be too scary. Therefore, after returning, they quickly spread the appearance of Yu Qianqiu. In a few days, it had spread all over the demon region. Chapter 323. Utopia's Misty Palace. Yu Qianqiu walked out of his room with a grin on his face. The beauty Chu Ping, who came out behind him, still had a blush on her face, and her eyes were filled with lust. When she heard the man in front of her laughing lewdly, she reached out and pinched his waist harshly. It was so painful that Yu Qianqiu grimaced in pain. However, the pain was accompanied by happiness. It was obvious that he did not do anything nice to Chu Ping, or just now. When he passed by Bai Suzhen's door, Yu Qianqiu paused for a moment. Then he shook his head and walked away. Ever since he passed the green destiny sword to her, she rarely came out. She was wholeheartedly focused on breaking the seal on the sword. She was always so dedicated to the tasks that he entrusted to her. Yu Qianqiu engraved every bit of Bai Suzhen's kindness in his heart. Whenever he met with setbacks and hardships, as long as he thought of her at home, that sweet-tempered and peerless face would appear in his mind. It was like a miraculous elixir that would immediately dispel his worries and give him unlimited motivation. After exiting the Misty Palace, Chu Ping brought him to a newly opened herb garden. With the mystical effects of the purple chaos, the seal-breaking technique had already produced more than 1,000 stalks in a short period of time. Dark green leaves and crystal-like branches. This mystical plant made Yu Qianqiu's mood improve greatly. He personally picked a few pairs and asked Chu Ping to prepare some supplementary spirit herbs. Chen Feng, come to my place in the Misty Palace quickly. Chen Feng was in a daze inside a stone room. He was holding a brush for making talismans in his hand, but he didn't write anything on the talisman paper on the table. No one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, he received a voice transmission from Yu Qianqiu. His eyes lit up and he said, "You're finally back." He threw the brush in his hand and rushed out of the stone room in a hurry. On the top floor of the ethereal palace was the largest room. It was originally designed for Yu Qianqiu to meditate and cultivate. Unfortunately, Yu Qianqiu was always busy and rarely used this place. There were no other furnishings in the room. There was only a table, a chair, and a bed. It looked empty. Chu Ping was arranging the spirit herbs she brought on the table according to their categories, looking very much like a wife. Yu Qianqiu stood at the side with his hands behind his back. After a while, Guan Yu and Chen Feng came together. The moment they entered, they greeted, "Boss." Then they greeted Chu Ping. Yu Qianqiu smiled and nodded. His gaze paused when it fell on Chen Feng. Guan Yu still had that dignified appearance, but Chen Feng seemed a little different. He didn't think too much about it. He smiled and said to the two of them, "I brought something good back this time. Take a look." Then, he walked to the table filled with spirit herbs and stretched out his palms. A faint green flame suddenly appeared in each of his palms, illuminating the whole room with that terrifying green color. Guan Yu and Chen Feng were shocked. What kind of magic art was this? They looked at each other and didn't know what he was going to do. Yu Qianqiu didn't explain. He stretched out his arms, and the green flame on his palms instantly swelled up. The demonic green color slowly faded until it became almost transparent. One could only faintly feel some green shadows. If one didn't pay attention, who would notice that there were 2 balls of flame on his palms? After estimating that the temperature was about right, Yu Qianqiu said, "Ping, throw the spirit herbs." Chu Ping had already been instructed. She immediately threw the 2 spirit herbs on the table towards Yu Qianqiu's palms. The moment the spirit herbs entered the almost invisible flame, they instantly melted into a paste. Guan Yu and Chen Feng were shocked. What a powerful flame! They couldn't feel the slightest bit of temperature from standing at the side, but it was able to melt the spirit herbs in the blink of an eye. It was obvious that Yu Qianqiu could control the temperature of the flame at will. Chu Ping was also shocked. It was the first time she saw her man's fire art. The flame was almost invisible. The only thing that could be seen was the 2 balls of paste on his palms. Suddenly, the 2 balls of paste started to spin rapidly. The impurities were constantly thrown out and rose to the top of the transparent flame. They turned into ashes and floated away. Guan Yu couldn't understand the mystery behind it, but Chen Feng's eyes lit up. He was now an expert in this field. He naturally understood what it meant to be able to control the flame at will for alchemy. After the 2 balls of paste were removed, they turned into 2 balls of sparkling liquid. One was glowing red, and the other was glowing purple. They quietly sank into Yu Qianqiu's palms. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "Recently, I obtained 2 rare spirit herbs. They look the same, but one is real and one is fake. One is male and one is female. Together, they are known as real and fake spirit herbs. This purple one is the female real spirit herb, and the red one is the male fake spirit herb. Ping, throw again." The last sentence was directed at Chu Ping. Another 2 spirit herbs were thrown in. Just like the spirit herb, they first melted and had their impurities removed. Then they turned into sparkling liquid. Yu Qianqiu said again, "Throw again." He repeated this action 9 times with Chu Ping'er. The different colored liquids in Yu Qianqiu's palms were like exquisite pagodas. They piled up into 9 layers and released a brilliant light. Chen Feng watched carefully. "I want to concoct a real and fake limit-breaking pill. Now is the crucial step before the pill is completed. You must remember this. I don't have time, so I'll leave it to you to concoct in the future," Yu Qianqiu said to Chen Feng seriously. Chen Feng's eyes widened, and he nodded repeatedly. He really couldn't understand how Boss could always get good recipes for alchemy. As soon as he finished speaking, the 9 balls of different colored liquids started moving in the transparent flame. They shone brightly like stars in the universe, enchanting and dazzling. At this moment, one of the balls of crystal suddenly collided with another ball of crystal. The 2 balls mixed together and spun rapidly. The color was a little murky at first, but after they gradually fused, a single light appeared. As soon as this larger ball of crystal liquid calmed down, another 2 balls started stirring. Although Chu Ping'er and Guan Yu had seen people concoct pills before, they had never seen anyone concoct pills without using an alchemy furnace. They could clearly see every movement in front of them. The splendor of the combination were simply dazzling. The unrestrained agitation, the instantaneous heartbreak, the tactful wrapping, the fusion at all costs, the passion and desolation were all in silence. After seeing it, one would know that the flying meteors and the dazzling fireworks were nothing more than this. The 2 of them were a little obsessed as they watched. Chen Feng smiled bitterly. Boss was indeed boss. Once he made a move, he had to admit that he was inferior to him. That kind of carefree and easy movement, and that kind of beauty was something that he could never hope to achieve. Moreover, he was doing 2 things at the same time, concocting 2 cauldrons of pills at the same time. The spiritual liquid of the restriction-breaking grass floated peacefully at the top. When a 4-colored ball of spiritual liquid appeared below, the spiritual liquid at the top also started to move. Moreover, it spun faster and faster. Suddenly, 4 drops of liquid were thrown out, and they were all absorbed by the 4-colored ball of liquid below at the same time. The 4-colored ball of liquid was originally as calm as a virgin, but at this moment, its heart was stirred and its color changed. The ball of liquid at the top saw that it wasn't tempting enough, so it threw out 4 more drops of liquid, as if it was determined to change the heart of the 4-colored ball of liquid below. In the end, it exhausted itself and completely changed the color of the 4 balls of liquid. The 4 blobs of liquid whose temperament had changed greatly suddenly seemed to have gone crazy. They chased each other, drawing out streaks of shining arcs, and then collided with each other without any regard for anything else. In the end, they became indistinguishable from one another, turning into a lump. Only then did they stop fighting and slowly revolve. Although they were contained together, they were half-hearted and their colors were mixed up. However, there was a mysterious force that wanted to interfere, forcing them to spin faster and faster. The liquid on Yu Qianqiu's left hand had completely turned red, and the liquid on his right hand had completely turned purple. The rapid spinning caused the liquid on his left and right hand to separate into 10 balls of equal size. The world on his palms didn't seem to be impatient, and it was willing to accept the arrangements of fate. When Yu Qianqiu put away the flames and grabbed a handful of pills in each hand, Chu Ping'er and Guan Yu, who were watching, suddenly let out a sigh of relief. This scene of concocting pills made the 3 of them feel as if they were watching a pantomime. Although it was silent, the ups and downs and the thrill of it were clearly portrayed. How was this concocting pills? Chen Feng couldn't close his mouth for a long time. Chapter 324. When Yu Qianqiu saw the dumbfounded expressions of the 3 people, he couldn't help but feel a little proud of himself. The fire had already fused with him, so his ability to control fire was not just for show. He had never heard of anyone who didn't use an alchemy furnace to concoct pills. He reckoned that such an awesome alchemy technique was the first in the cultivation world. Guan Yu stroked his beard and exclaimed in admiration, clicking his tongue. Chu Ping'er, on the other hand, had a complacent look on her face. She gently hugged Yu Qianqiu's arm with a happy look on her face. She naturally wanted her man to be as powerful as possible. It would be best if he could beat all the men in the world. Chen Feng was so anxious that he was scratching his head and ears, and his heart was itching. It would have been fine if he hadn't seen it, but since he had seen it, how could he endure it? After all, he was also a person who was infatuated with this profession. He immediately hugged Yu Qianqiu's arm and begged, "Boss, how did you release this fire? Quick, teach me." Yu Qianqiu's right arm was enjoying the warmth of Chu Ping's embrace. He was very proud. Suddenly, his left arm was hugged by Chen Feng like a woman. What was going on? He suddenly felt goosebumps all over his body. He waved his hand and flung Chen Feng's arm away. His eyes revealed a disgusted expression and he said, "Is my arm for a man to hug? You're a man. Why are you acting like a woman? Disgusting, don't touch me." Chen Feng's face was full of endless grievance. Guan Yu and Chu Ping couldn't help but laugh out loud. "All right, I don't have much time. I still have something important to tell you." As soon as Yu Qianqiu got down to business, Chu Ping immediately let go of his arm. A handful of restriction-breaking pills, both red and purple in color, were placed on the table. Then he grabbed 2 true and fake restriction-breaking spirit herbs, and a bunch of supplementary spirit herbs. The almost transparent flame emerged from his palm again. This time, Yu Qianqiu did not ask Chu Pinger to help. Instead, he threw all the spirit herbs into the flame. The flame was as long as a pillar. The 9 kinds of spirit herbs were quickly separated into 9 layers and refined at the same time. At the same time, the impurities in them were removed. Then the crystal-clear liquid that looked like a 9-layered exquisite pagoda appeared again. Chen Feng's eyes almost popped out of his eye sockets. The fire released by a palm could actually be divided into 9 segments to refine the spiritual herbs at the same time. Was there really such a marvelous technique of controlling fire in this world? The other 2 might not know, but he knew how difficult it was to do so. Chen Feng's eyes lit up again. The refining method was almost the same as the previous ones. Apart from placing the true and false restriction-breaking spirit herbs together, Yu Qianqiu refined the spirit herbs at the same time in order to save time. The subsequent steps were the same. Soon, a handful of spirit pills that were as translucent as crystals were placed on the table. They were still emitting a misty white halo like mist. Chen Feng frowned. He quickly walked up to the table and grabbed the purple, red and transparent spirit pills. He clicked his tongue and said, "The male and female restriction-breaking spirit herbs look the same, but I didn't expect them to be so amazing. Refining them separately and refining them together can actually produce a spirit pill of 3 colors. This is really mysterious." He sniffed the spirit pills and nodded. The aroma is also different. Guan Yu also walked up to the table and looked at the spirit pills. He clicked his tongue in wonder. Chu Ping obviously had a soft spot for the transparent spirit pills. She would occasionally close her other eye to look at them. No one knew what she saw through the transparent spirit pills. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the spirit pills on the table and said, "The red one is called the false restriction-breaking pill. The purple one is called the true restriction-breaking pill. And the transparent one is called the restriction-breaking pill. After consuming these 3 spirit pills, as long as you have enough spirit stones, you can absorb their spiritual qi before the effects of the spirit pills dissipate. You can quickly convert the spiritual qi into true essence and quickly increase your cultivation level. If you also have a spirit pill that can help you break through a bottleneck, you can break through to the early stage of tribulation passing in a short period of time. After that, there will be no effect, and you will have to rely on your own cultivation." Hearing this, the 3 of them were all shocked. Guan Yu looked at the spirit pills in his hand and said, "There are such magical spirit pills in this world? This is simply incredible. Since they all have such miraculous effects, why do these spirit pills have 3 colors and are called the restriction-breaking pill, the true restriction-breaking pill, and the false restriction-breaking pill? There must be a difference, right?" Chen Feng was indeed a professional, and immediately grasped the crux of the problem. Yu Qianqiu looked at him with approval and said with a smile, The restriction-breaking pill will not have any side effects after helping you break through to the tribulation-passing stage. Although the true restriction-breaking pill can help you break through to the tribulation-passing stage, it will accumulate a strange poison in your body that is almost impossible to remove. In the future, no matter how hard you cultivate, your cultivation level will be limited to the late stage of tribulation-passing stage. You will never have the chance to break through to the soul formation stage. Isn't that the same? Guan Yu picked up a purple spirit pill and said with a smile. It's already very good to be able to cultivate to the late stage of tribulation passing stage. The soul formation stage is just a legend. I haven't heard of anyone breaking through to the soul formation stage in the current cultivation world. Chun Feng and Chu Ping nodded in agreement. Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly and said, I recently became the disciple of a new master. The three of them were stunned when they heard this. They didn't know why he suddenly said this. Guan Yu's expression was a little twitching as he smiled and said, That, cough cough. Boss, why did you become the disciple of another master? It seems that changing masters in the cultivation world is a disgraceful thing. You're already the third one, right? If this gets out, I'm afraid your reputation won't be good, and you'll be easily condemned by the cultivators in the world. Condemned my ass. Whoever wants to condemn me can condemn me. Yu Qianqiu sneered to express his disdain. He looked at the three of them and said proudly, My master is amazing. Didn't Yunchang say that the soul formation stage is just a legend? I'm really sorry, but my master is a soul formation stage cultivator. What? Say that again. Guan Yu and Chun Feng exclaimed in unison. They both thought they had heard wrong. Chu Ping, and Bai Suzhen had heard the story of the demon ghost realm torture enforcer from Yu Qianqiu, so they already knew that soul formation stage cultivators really existed in this world. Naturally, there was nothing to be surprised about. Yu Qianqiu looked at the two shocked guys and said mockingly, Not only is my master a soul formation stage cultivator, he's also a soul formation final stage cultivator. Whoever doesn't become the disciple of such an awesome master is an idiot. Really? The two of them exclaimed in unison again. Yu Qianqiu nodded to the two of them with certainty and said, Do I look like someone who would lie to you? Why don't you think about it? Do I care about ordinary tribulation passing stage cultivators? Even those at the final stage? It's even more impossible for me to become their disciple. The two of them stood there in disbelief. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand in disdain and sneered. Two ignorant idiots. Is a soul formation stage cultivator worth such a big reaction from you? Let me tell you, there are many soul formation stage cultivators in this world. It's just that most of them don't interact with ordinary cultivators, so not many people in the cultivation world know about them. After I go out this time, I'm going to visit another soul formation mid-stage cultivator. The two of them still stood there motionlessly. They probably wouldn't be able to recover for a while. After all, this was something that subverted their worldview. It was very hard for them to accept. Chu Ping looked at Yu Qianqiu with admiration. She picked up the red spirit pill and asked, Then what's the use of this fake limit-breaking pill? Oh, that's for the enemy to eat. Whoever eats it, once their cultivation reaches the tribulation passing stage, they will immediately wither and die. Yu Qianqiu said indifferently, but Chu Ping was shocked. She immediately threw the red spirit pill back on the table, afraid that she would be poisoned and grow old. Women. What they were afraid of was aging. The sound of the red spirit pill bouncing on the table made Guan Yu and Chun Feng come back to their senses. The two of them looked at each other and shook their heads. Guan Yu sighed. Boss, you didn't call me here just to watch you refine pills, right? Did you want to let the triad members take the limit-breaking pill? Smart. Yu Qianqiu gave him a thumbs up and asked Chun Feng. Chun Feng, did you see the steps clearly? I have a lot of things to do, so I'll have to rely on you in the future. Yes, I saw it clearly. That hee. Chun Feng smiled embarrassedly. If boss could teach me that fire control technique, it would be great. I'm sure it would be easier to refine the limit-breaking pill. No. Yu Qianqiu refused bluntly. It's not that I'm stingy, but this fire control technique is very powerful. It's my trump card. I won't teach it to anyone for now. Besides, I'm not teaching it to you now for your own good. You'll understand when the time comes. In fact, there was something in his heart that he didn't say out loud. I'll teach it to someone when I'm sure it won't threaten my safety. Otherwise, I won't do it even if you beat me to death. This is my patent. He said it so bluntly, but Chen Feng wasn't unhappy because of his refusal. He just smiled enviously. He looked at the three-colored spirit pill on the table and asked, "Boss, since that red one is poisonous, there's no need to refine it. We can't use it anyway." "Who said we can't use it?" Yu Qianqiu glared at him. "Just focus on refining it. I'll naturally give it to someone who needs it. I have a big show to perform. Don't be lazy and ruin my plans." Chapter 325. No. Chen Feng patted his chest and promised, "As long as we have the spiritual herbs, it won't be a problem for you." Yu Qianqiu gave him a look that said he didn't dare to believe him. Guan Yu frowned and interrupted. "If the limit-breaking pill really has such a magical effect, it will be a good thing. The problem is that it's a bit troublesome to break through the bottleneck. We have the foundation establishment pill, the spirit pill for breaking through to the core formation stage, and the 7-star blood orchid fruit for breaking through to the nascent soul stage. But what about the crossing calamity stage? In the first group of our heroes, there are many late-stage nascent soul stage members. They are the backbone of our 6 regiments. It's necessary to let them break through to the crossing calamity stage first. Otherwise, when the other members catch up, it will affect their prestige in the army. Besides, the others will break through to the crossing calamity stage sooner or later. Old Guan, we have the recipe for the spirit pill that can break through the bottleneck. Boss gave it to me a long time ago. We also have the other spiritual herbs, but we don't have the main ingredient, colorful Ganoderma. If we have this treasure, we won't even need the foundation establishment pill anymore. It can be used from the Qi refinement stage to the crossing calamity stage." Chen Feng looked at Yu Qianqiu with a smile and said, "Boss is very resourceful. I've never seen anything that you can't get. I think you have a way to solve this colorful Ganoderma." Yu Qianqiu glanced at him coldly and ignored him. He asked Guan Yu, "Yunchang, how many old members are there in the 6 regiments? How many of them have reached the peak of the late-stage nascent soul stage?" Guan Yu thought for a moment and said, "Excluding those who died in battle, there are less than 200 old members. But most of them are at the late-stage nascent soul stage. Most of them are at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul stage. There are about 100 of them." "Okay, we'll do as you say. Let's solve the problem of the old members first. They don't need to take the limit-breaking pill. Maybe they will have a chance to reach the soul formation stage in the future." Yu Qianqiu pondered. Guan Yu nodded. Suddenly, he was startled and said, "Boss, you mean let the members of the underworld take the true restriction-breaking pill? Didn't you say that the limit-breaking pill had no side effects? Why did you make them consume the true restriction-breaking pill?" "Some things are not easy to decide right now. I don't know if the pill formula is true or not. I still need to test it out. Let's not talk about this first." "Chen Feng." Yu Qianqiu turned around and said, "I'll leave the elixirs for the 100 old members to break through to the tribulation stage to you. Other things can wait." This. Chen Feng smiled bitterly and spread out his hands. "Boss, you have to give me the rainbow Lingji first." Yu Qianqiu ignored him. Instead, he nodded at Chu Ping'er. Chu Ping'er glared at Chen Feng and left. Who asked that guy to make things difficult for her man? The couple spoke in riddles, causing Guan Yu and Chen Feng to be confused. After a while, Chu Ping'er came back and threw something on the table. She said to Chen Feng in annoyance, "Is this the rainbow Lingji you wanted?" A 7-colored Lingji mushroom the size of 2 palms was swaying on the table. Chen Feng rubbed his eyes in disbelief and walked over to the Lingji mushroom to examine it carefully. After confirming that there was no mistake, he looked at Guan Yu awkwardly and said with a twitching expression, "Old Guan, it really is a 7-colored Lingji mushroom." He really didn't expect that such a precious spiritual herb would appear so easily. It really made him speechless. Although Guan Yu was confused before, after seeing it, he didn't feel that there was anything to be surprised about. He was already used to the surprises that Yu Qianqiu gave him. Just think about it. All the spiritual herbs in Utopia had been single-handedly gathered by this guy. The variety was so abundant that it made one's hair stand on end. Even the major sects in the world of cultivators could not compare to it. He really didn't know what this guy was doing outside all day long to gather all the good stuff. Guan Yu believed that if he were to do it, he definitely wouldn't have the ability to do it. Sometimes, even if the conditions were the same or even better, he wouldn't be able to do anything without the ability. He was full of admiration. This was something that Guan Yu often sighed about in his heart, even though he didn't say it out loud. Rare spirit herbs, priceless pill recipes, seemingly inexhaustible spirit stones, an ocean's worth of cultivation manuals, and the occasional cultivation seedlings with spiritual roots. All of these were brought back by this guy alone. In the beginning, Guan Yu had thought that it was luck. However, after interacting with him for the past few years, he had completely changed his mind. Although this guy often acted like a gangster and seemed to be fooling around at a young age, he was actually farsighted and had the spirit of a superior. He had managed to support such a huge family business through all sorts of nonsense. He had gathered people to build an army and constantly improve the training of the army. He had gathered spirit herbs to open up a spirit herb plantation. He had strongly supported Qinfeng's pill refinement and equipment refinement. He had reclaimed wastelands to be self-sufficient. There was also a series of security measures. All of these showed that this guy was making arrangements and preparing to do something big. Otherwise, no one would do all these things without any benefits because it was meaningless. Guan Yu had reason to believe that it was definitely dangerous for him to be able to gather so many things. It was possible that this guy was also making arrangements outside. He believed that when this army was officially revealed, the mystery would be revealed. There's no need to doubt it. It's a genuine rainbow Lingji. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. You'll get plenty of spirit herbs. Don't drag me down when it comes to logistics. Hee. Chen Feng laughed awkwardly. I already knew that boss has remarkable abilities. Sure enough, I've been proven once again. Don't give me that. Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and waved his hand. He turned around and said to Guan Yu, Yinchang, find a few members who have just reached the early stage of foundation building, early stage of core formation, and early stage of nascent soul. I want to test if the effect of the limit-breaking pill is the same as what's recorded in the pill recipe. Guan Yu looked at the spirit pills on the table hesitantly. Yu Qianqiu saw through his concerns and knew that he cared for his subordinates. He smiled and said, Don't worry. I won't let them take the red or white ones. I'll only give them the purple limit-breaking pill. Other than testing the effect, I also want to know the ratio of spirit stones used so that I can be prepared. Guan Yu frowned. Boss, didn't you say that the limit-breaking pill has side effects and will hinder their cultivation? Why don't you just give them the limit-breaking pill without side effects? Chen Feng and Chu Ping also looked at Yu Qianqiu in confusion. Yu Qianqiu smiled. It's too early to talk about this. When the results are out, I'll tell you the reason. Don't ask too much. I don't have much time. Go. Guan Yu nodded helplessly and left. After he left, Yu Qianqiu once again picked out spirit herbs from the table and made a few more limit-breaking pills. Then he put away the spirit herbs and the red and white spirit pills. All that was left were a few dozen purple limit-breaking pills. After waiting for some time, Guan Yu came in with 3 people. Their cultivations were exactly the 3 levels that Yu Qianqiu mentioned. Yu Qianqiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This Guan Yu was really protective of his subordinates. Yu Qianqiu clearly said that he wanted a few people, but Guan Yu only brought one of each cultivation level. It was as if he was afraid that Yu Qianqiu would harm his subordinates. Aren't they my subordinates? Leader. When the 3 of them saw Yu Qianqiu, they gave a standard military salute. The 3 of them looked very excited. To be able to receive a personal audience with the leader was a supreme honor in the entire army, especially in the ethereal palace where the leader lived. It wasn't a place that just anyone could enter. It was enough to show off to the team when they returned. After a long period of political brainwashing, The performance of the three of them could be said to have satisfied Yu Qianqiu. All of you relax. Don't be so nervous. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and smiled amiably. He had the demeanor of a leader. However, the three of them saluted Chen Feng and Chu Ping. To the three of them, the people in this room were the big shots of Utopia. It was really an honor to be received by so many big shots at the same time. Ahem. Yu Qianqiu cleared his throat and pointed at the elixirs on the table. He said solemnly, "Do the three of you see this? These are some newly refined elixirs. After consuming them, no matter how much spiritual energy one absorbs, it can quickly be converted into true essence. It can quickly increase one's cultivation level. These elixirs will soon be distributed to everyone in the army. Before that, I specially asked your instructor to pick 3 people of different cultivation levels. In the end, your instructor chose you. This is your honor. In order to find out how many spirit stones are needed for each elixir at each cultivation level, and in order to facilitate the distribution of elixirs and spirit stones, this elixir trial task will be handed over to the 3 of you to complete. Tell me, are you confident that you can complete it?" "Yes," the 3 of them replied in unison. Chapter 326. Yu Qianqiu happily nodded his head. He took out 3 storage pouches and walked around the table. First, he gave one to each of them and said, "Each storage pouch contains 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Feel free to use them. If it's not enough, we'll talk about it later." Then he gave one to the last person and said, "You're a nascent soul cultivator, so you might need a bit more. There are 100,000 high-grade spirit stones inside. Alright, let's begin here." With a heavy expression, Guan Yu took out 3 purple spirit pills from the table, and silently gave one to each of them. After the 3 of them bowed to the heads, they stood up and sat cross-legged on the ground. They swallowed the spirit pills, then grabbed a handful of spirit stones from their storage pouches. Then they closed their eyes and began to catalyze the spirit pills' absorption of spiritual energy. After a while, the skin of the 3 of them turned red, and they began to tremble uncontrollably. It was obvious that they were in pain. It was probably a reaction from the spirit pills' medicinal effects. The 3 of them abruptly opened their eyes, revealing expressions of disbelief and shock. After looking at each other, they closed their eyes once again. Yu Qianqiu and the others did not say a word as they silently observed the 3's reactions. From the speed at which the 3 of them absorbed spiritual energy, it was easy to determine the difference in their cultivation. The higher their cultivation, the more frequently they would take out spirit stones from their storage pouches to absorb spiritual energy. The weakest among them would take a long time to finish absorbing a handful. The spirit stones, which had been depleted of spiritual energy, gradually accumulated in front of the 3 of them. The nascent soul cultivator in particular had more spirit stones than the other 2 combined. 10 hours later, the 3 of them slowly regained their normal complexion. They opened their eyes almost at the same time, and their expressions were one of extreme shock. Yu Qianqiu nodded his head to himself. It seemed that the medicinal effects of these spirit pills could only last for 10 hours. It was exactly as recorded in the pill recipe Jade archive. He smiled and asked, "How are the effects of these spirit pills? How do you feel?" The 3 of them excitedly stood up and bowed. The first person closest to Yu Qianqiu replied, "Leader, when the spirit pill's medicinal properties spread through your body, you feel like you're in a furnace. Large amounts of purple gas appear in your body, and the temperature of the purple gas is very high. However, when you absorb the spiritual energy from the spirit stone into your body, you immediately feel a cool sensation, and the spiritual energy is quickly refined into true essence by the purple gas." I was originally at the early nascent soul stage, but now I have broken through to the middle nascent soul stage. It is simply incredible to have such a miraculous spirit pill. As he spoke, his face was still filled with irrepressible excitement. Think about it, even in the big sects outside, if you want to break through from the early Yuanying stage to the middle Yuanying stage, it would take at least a few decades for those with good aptitude, and this was still under the condition that there were enough spirit stones. But for those with poor aptitude, it was needless to say that it would be good if they could break through in 100 years. and some would not be able to take a step forward in their lifetime. But he did it in a short 10 hours. How could he not be excited? Not bad, not bad. Yu Qianqiu nodded and smiled. He then asked the two people behind him, "How are you two?" The one in the middle also replied excitedly, "Leader, I was originally at the early core formation stage, but now I have broken through to the middle core formation stage." The last person nodded and said, "I have also broken through from the early foundation building stage to the middle foundation building stage." "Good, your performance is not bad. Go back first." Yu Qianqiu smiled. Yes. The three of them bowed and handed over their storage pouches. Who knew that Yu Qianqiu would wave his hand and smile? "Take it back, this is your reward." The three of them looked at each other and bowed again. "Thank you, leader." Then they walked out in a line. After the three of them left, Chen Feng rushed to the table and grabbed the purple spirit pill. He exclaimed, "Oh my god! As long as I have enough spirit stones, I can break through to the next level in 4 hours. This is too magical, too magical." He turned around and waved the 2 spirit pills in his hand. He shouted, "Boss! If that's the case, as long as we make enough spirit pills, doesn't that mean that everyone in Utopia will have a chance to reach the tribulation stage? Oh my god! Nearly 10,000 tribulation stage cultivators. What kind of concept is that?" Chu Ping, and Guan Yu were also in disbelief. The two of them knew that the pill was magical, but they didn't expect it to be this magical. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I did this experiment to verify the records in the pill recipe. Now that I have confirmed a part of it, I believe the rest can't be fake. Is there a problem?" Guan Yu frowned. "There's a big problem." Yu Qianqiu looked at the three of them and asked, "Did you notice how many spirit stones the three of them used just now?" Chu Ping answered with an N and walked over to the spirit stone that had its spiritual aura sucked dry. She said, "I just noticed that foundation building cultivators used more than 100 high-grade spirit stones, core formation cultivators used more than 3,000, and nascent soul cultivators used almost 90,000. There's a huge difference in the amount of spirit stones used for each level of cultivation. Sigh. Women are more meticulous than men." Yu Qianqiu sighed and said, "Yunchang, do you know the cultivation level of everyone in Utopia?" Guan Yu thought for a while and replied, "There are more than 2,000 people in the Qi refinement stage, nearly 4,000 in the foundation establishment stage, nearly 3,000 in the core formation stage, and nearly 800 in the nascent soul stage." Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, "According to the pill recipe, a spirit pill needs more than 100 high-grade spirit stones to break through from the early stage to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, more than 300 high-grade spirit stones to break through from the middle stage to the early stage of the core formation stage, about 1,000 high-grade spirit stones to break through from the late stage to the early stage of the core formation stage, and more than 3,000 high-grade spirit stones to break through from the early stage to the early stage of the tribulation stage. In other words, a person will need nearly 900,000 high-grade spirit stones to break through from the late stage of the nascent soul stage to the early stage of the tribulation stage. How many spirit stones will a person in the early stage of the foundation establishment stage need to use spirit pills to improve their cultivation level to the early stage of the tribulation stage?" Chen Feng counted with his fingers and muttered, "About 1,400 high-grade spirit stones for the foundation establishment stage, 39,000 for the core formation stage, and 1,170,000 for the nascent soul stage. Adding them all up, there's no need to count with your fingers. Even if he alone needs 1,200,000 high-grade spirit stones to break through from the early stage of the foundation establishment stage to the early stage of the tribulation stage. Let's not count the others and just assume that the 4,000 foundation establishment cultivators are all in the early stage of the foundation establishment stage. How many spirit stones do you think these 4,000 people will need to break through to the early stage of the tribulation stage?" After Yu Qianqiu asked the few of them, he waved his hand and exclaimed, nearly 5 billion high-grade spirit stones. Where are we going to get so many spirit stones all of a sudden? This is not counting the current core formation and nascent soul cultivators. let alone those in the qi refinement stage. 5 billion. The few of them were shocked by such a huge number, and looked at each other. After a moment of silence, Chen Feng smiled awkwardly and said, "It's nothing. When has Utopia ever lacked money? Boss can settle it easily." Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and looked at him coldly. "Why don't I let you go out and give it a try? I don't need much, just give me 1 billion. No, I don't have that ability." Chen Feng waved his hand repeatedly, and hid behind Guan Yu without saying a word. "What should we do then?" Chu Ping came over and gently held Yu Qianqiu's arm. "Why don't we stop this plan for now and think about it again when we have the money?" Yu Qianqiu's gloomy face immediately relaxed. Actually, it was not that he could not take out 5 billion high-grade spirit stones. Just the top-grade spirit stones alone were worth far more than that. Furthermore, he still had the divine-grade spirit stones in his hands. The key was that he treated them as his final assets. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not squander the divine-grade and top-grade spirit stones. Patting the jade-like hand on his arm, he said to Guan Yu and Chen Feng, "The plan will proceed as planned. With the current financial situation, we will first raise the cultivation of the old team members to the tribulation crossing stage. Then we will help the other nascent soul stage members. As for the remaining team members, we will slowly deal with them according to their positions in the army and their cultivation. I will think of a way to get the spirit stones." "Can't the essence chi pill also increase cultivation? Can we use the essence chi pill instead of the spirit stones?" Chen Feng flashed out and asked. It seemed that he also knew that there was a big gap and wanted to help. "The essence chi pill won't work. This limit-breaking pill can only directly interact with spirit chi. Nothing else is useful. You just need to carry out the plan," Yu Qianqiu said with some helplessness. In his heart, he was also muttering, could this be the chemical reaction mentioned in his previous life? Guan Yu and Chen Feng looked at each other and nodded. "Got it. So much money is needed. How are you going to think of a way?" Chu Pinger said with some worry. "The Wu clan of the 4 major clans still owes me tens of millions. They dared to renege on their debt. This money must be paid back in double." Yu Qianqiu suddenly sneered and said with a somewhat sinister expression, "If it really doesn't work, I will rob, steal and cheat. Whoever has money, I will mess with them. At most, I will become the enemy of the entire cultivation world. Anyway, there are not many good people. Who cares? In short, I cannot delay my plan." Chapter 327. Hearing his words, the 3 of them were stunned. Chu Pinger said doubtfully, "That's not a good idea, right?" Guan Yu and Chen Feng exchanged glances. Based on their understanding of Yu Qianqiu, they believed that he would really do such a thing. I was just joking. How could I really do such a thing?" Yu Qianqiu grinned as he comforted Chu Ping. Then he said to Guan Yu and Chen Feng, who were looking down on him, "Chen Feng, hurry up with the alchemy. If you need any spiritual herbs, look for Ping Yunchang, let's go to the military camp to take a look. I haven't been there for a long time. I wonder how the training is going." It was indeed not good to talk about cheating in front of Chu Ping, as it would damage his glorious image. Yu Qianqiu found an excuse guiltily, and wanted to leave. Guan Yu and Yu Qianqiu walked to the door together when they heard Chen Feng's voice behind them. "Sister-in-law, can I ask you for a favor?" The 2 of them stopped and turned around curiously, not knowing what Chen Feng wanted from Chu Ping. What is it? Do you still need to ask me?" Chu Pinger said in surprise. In her impression, Chen Feng had a lot of authority in Utopia. Moreover, Yu Qianqiu was here too. What matter couldn't he solve with Yu Qianqiu? Why did he have to look for her? Chen Feng nodded and bowed. "Sister-in-law, look at my subordinates. They are all men. I don't even have a woman who knows how to wash clothes. I, Chen Feng, am also a handsome man, but now I'm so sloppy." "Chen Feng, what do you mean? Do you want my wife to wash your clothes for you?" Yu Qianqiu immediately interrupted him. His face sank and he felt uneasy. Could it be that this scoundrel wants to hit on my woman because she's pretty? No. Boss, don't misunderstand. Chen Feng panicked. He waved his hands and said, I just want to ask sister-in-law to transfer a female guard from Ethereal Palace to help me take care of my daily life. Yu Qianqiu and Guan Yu looked at each other suspiciously. The former rubbed his chin and walked back, looking at Chen Feng with interest. Chen Feng's eyes darted around, obviously feeling a little guilty. A strange smile hung on Yu Qianqiu's face as he said to Chu Ping, Ping, pick an older and more experienced female guard from Ethereal Palace. Let her go with Chen Feng and take care of his daily life. Chen Feng hurriedly said, No need, no need. It's better for those with experience to stay in the Misty Palace. Sister Bai and sister-in-law are in need of them. I found a female guard quite diligent recently. I'll take her. This time, Chu Ping, and Guan Yu also noticed something. Yu Qianqiu said in a strange tone. Since you have your eyes on someone, you should have said so earlier. What's her name? Just tell me and let her go with you. Chen Feng immediately showed a look of gratitude and said, Her surname is Xiao. Her name is Xiao Wanqing. It turned out that Chen Feng had once seen a gloomy, beautiful woman in the Ethereal Palace. That woman was Xiao Wanqing. He did not know what was going on, but Chen Feng was stunned on the spot. It could be said that it was love at first sight. Hence, he began to secretly pay attention to Xiao Wanqing. Xiao Wanqing? Yu Qianqiu muttered. His expression became a little strange. In his mind, the smiling lady who always called out, Yu Qianqiu appeared. He had almost forgotten about this lady. When he came back to his senses, Yu Qianqiu sized Chen Feng up. He thought to himself, no wonder this fellow is usually sloppy, comparable to Guan Weiwu. Why does he look so different today? Turns out he tidied up and prepared for a blind date. Damn. Chu Ping saw that there was something wrong with him and asked, You know Xiao Wanqing? Yu Qianqiu sighed and said, So she is also a disciple of Fuxian Island. We used to be friends. Ping call her over. Chu Ping nodded obediently and left. Haha. Boss is still the best. Thank you, boss. Chen Feng nodded and bowed again. That's nothing. When Xiao Wanqing gets here, I'll warn her to serve you well. If she dares to have any thoughts about you because of her vanity, or if she interferes with your work, I'll destroy her in body and soul. After saying that, Yu Qianqiu's face sank. He opened his hand and a clump of cyan flame shot out, wreaking havoc. The temperature of the room instantly rose to a frightening level. Thankfully, he was quick to retract the cyan flames. Even so, the two people at the side could feel the power that made their hearts palpitate. Ah! Chen Feng let out a strange cry. He was a little dumbfounded. Guan Yu, who was at the side, smiled. He stroked his long beard and turned to the side. Of course, if you like her. Yu Qianqiu was seriously considering. Chen Feng continued. If I like her, what will you do to her? Yu Qianqiu turned his head and said, Fei Yan, if you like her. What else can I say? This boss will naturally help you. However, I don't think you will like her either. I still have to warn her. No. Boss, please be merciful. I like her, alright? Like who? Xiao Wanqing. I can't hear you clearly. Speak louder. I like Xiao Wanqing. Chen Feng roared anxiously. He was not usually so stupid. Love. It made men stupid too. In the end, Yu Qianqiu's voice was even louder than his. He shouted, Chen Feng, you bastard. Don't play tricks in front of me in the future. You are still too inexperienced. If you make me angry, I will make you a bachelor for the rest of your life. Chen Feng was stunned. Although Yu Qianqiu's expression was ferocious as he glared at him, his tone was calm. Isn't it just liking a woman? What's the big deal? If you like her, then you like her. Who will fight with you? Do you really have to beat around the bush with me? Don't you know that my time is precious? Chu Ping led them in with a beaming face. It seemed like all women had the hobby of being matchmakers. Xiao Wanqing bowed to the few people in the room. Chen Feng stood there with a contorted expression. His eyebrows were a little asymmetrical. He was blissful. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, indicating that there was no need for her to be so polite. He smiled and said, Xiao Wanqing, long time no see. Boss, what instructions do you have for me? Xiao Wanqing said respectfully. The way she addressed him had changed. The radiant smile that Yu Qianqiu was once familiar with was gone as well. There seemed to be a hint of resentment. Yu Qianqiu did not beat around the bush. He pointed at Chen Feng and said, "This is Director Chen, who is in charge of our Utopia's logistics refinement. I believe you know him. From today onwards, you will be transferred to Director Chen's subordinate. You will be in charge of Director Chen's personal life. This is a very important mission. You have to take good care of Director Chen and let him manage the logistics refinement in a good mood. Director Chen has quite a good impression of you. He personally chose you. If Director Chen treats you..." At this point he could not continue. Why did he feel like he was forcing her to marry him? Wasn't that too much? By the side, Chu Ping stared at her man with widened eyes. She did not know what to feel. Guan Yu's expression twitched as he turned his head to the side. On the other hand, Chen Feng was beaming. He felt that his boss was really loyal. What he said was very professional and profound. But why did he stop? Yu Qianqiu touched his nose awkwardly and said, "About that, Director Chen will tell you the details after you go with him. I won't say anything else." Xiao Wanqing did not agree or say no. She only stared straight at Yu Qianqiu. After a long time, she suddenly said, "Boss, you mean you want me to be Director Chen's woman in the future?" She was smart and guessed it immediately. No. You two can develop yourselves. Of course, I'd be happy to see the two of you as a couple." After Yu Qianqiu said this, he almost blushed. This was no different from forcing a girl to be a prostitute. Chen Feng rubbed his hands happily on the side. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him. F***ck. You're having fun. He wanted to kick him on the spot. He actually made his boss do such a disgusting thing. He was too inhumane. Bastard. Yu Qianqiu, if you want me to be Director Chen's woman, I'll do it. Wanqing has let you down in the past. Now I'll listen to everything you say. Wanqing only needs one word from you. Will you do it or not? Xiao Wanqing's sudden words could be said to be heart-wrenching. She directly changed the way she addressed him to his name. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 pairs of eyes stared at Yu Qianqiu. Chu Pinger's eyes were filled with suspicion. Guan Yu pinched off a few of his long hairs, and Chen Feng's eyes were almost pleading as he looked at him, afraid that he would say, "I don't want to do it." It felt like he was entrusting his lifelong happiness to his boss. Yu Qianqiu's heartstrings trembled. He secretly lamented. "Xiao Wanqing, I know you have a crush on me. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Otherwise, you and I might be fated. Unfortunately, I can't tolerate sand in my eyes." Seeing Chen Feng's anxious gaze, Yu Qianqiu made up his mind. He clenched his teeth and said, "I can see that Director Chen likes you very much. Then you should be his woman." After saying that, he immediately said to Guan Yu, "Yunchang, let's go to the barracks to take a look." After saying that, he walked out first. He couldn't stand Chu Ping's inquiring gaze. It was better to hide first. When he thought of Furong and Wu Lixue outside, he felt a headache. What if these 3 women met each other? Guan Yu came out and quickly caught up to him. He asked, "Boss, what's with Xiao Wanqing saying that she let you down in the past?" "Actually, it's nothing. She's just thinking too much. I don't think she let me down in any way." Yu Qianqiu sighed. "Back then I had a few friends on Fuxian Island. Xiao Wanqing was one of them. I invited them to go with me, but they refused. So I forcefully detained them. Your subordinate, Gu Qingyun, knows about this. He's one of the parties involved. She said she let me down. Maybe it's because she rejected me." "Oh." Guan Yu's voice was filled with doubt. He was thinking of finding a chance to ask Gu Qingyun. The two of them had already left Misty Palace. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to linger on this topic. He coughed and said, Yinchang, do you have a woman that you like? If you need me to be your matchmaker, tell me. I'll definitely support you. Unfortunately, you won't agree to the woman I want." Guan Yu's mind was filled with the image of a woman in a white robe with a gentle face that could topple cities. He snorted and said, "Ask you to be my matchmaker? No need. I don't want to meet a second Xiao Wanqing. If there's really someone I like, I'll go ask Sister Bai directly. Boss, you don't have to get involved." Hee. That's good. That's good. I'm busy now. I'm afraid I don't have time. Yu Qianqiu smiled awkwardly. Chapter 328. Boss, wait up. The two of them had just left Ethereal Palace, and were about to ride their swords to the army camp when they heard someone shouting. Turning around, they saw Chen Feng running out excitedly, followed by Chu Ping, and Xiao Wanqing. Boss, I want to ask you something. Chen Feng chuckled. Yu Qianqiu found him an eyesore no matter how he looked at him. What? You want a woman? Go find one yourself. Don't look for me. No, I'm not that. I'm not that greedy. Chen Feng almost said the wrong thing in a moment of desperation. Yu Qianqiu glared at him. Spit it out. Chen Feng was in a good mood. No matter how much Yu Qianqiu scolded him, he wouldn't be unhappy. He nodded and bowed. Didn't you say that the limit-breaking pill is different from the real and fake pills? I want Xiao Wanqing to raise her cultivation first. That won't be a problem, right? He just had a girlfriend, and now he wanted to please her. What a good man. Yo. Since when are you so proactive? I want to *CK. Yu Qianqiu suddenly slapped his forehead and pointed at Chen Feng. It's all your fault. I almost forgot to tell you the most important thing. When Chu Ping walked over, he said to them, remember, this limit-breaking pill doesn't have any side effects. The only flaw is that after the effects, the person will be unable to move for a month. If you want to raise your cultivation again, you'll have to wait for a month before you can take the second limit-breaking pill. Ah, how can this be? Chen Feng exclaimed. Guan Yu and Chu Ping also frowned. Only Xiao Wanqing, who was standing quietly at the side, didn't know what they were talking about. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, this is the difference between the limit-breaking pill and the true and pseudo pills. The poison from the true and pseudo pills will accumulate, but the poison from the limit-breaking pill will be automatically consumed by the body. The body will be stiff for a month to neutralize the poison. If you want to take the limit-breaking pill, remember to arrange the things at hand first. Also, it's not a good feeling to be awake but unable to move for a month. This is not meditation. You have to be mentally prepared. The few of them didn't expect that there was such a powerful relationship, and their expressions changed. Imagine being awake, but unable to move your body for an entire month. Sure enough, there was a price to pay for improving one's cultivation. It was not an easy thing to do. Chu Ping, gently walked to Yu Qianqiu's side, bit her lips and said, a month of pain can be exchanged for an increase in cultivation. I'm a little worried about you going out alone. Why don't you go out a month later? It's always good to increase your cultivation. I can take care of you here. It's still the best to have a wife and a child by my side. Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly and said, I still have a lot of things to do, and some things have to be settled quickly. How can I not go out for a month? We'll talk about it in the future. Oh right, Ping. If big sister comes out, tell her about what happened today, so that she can be prepared. Got it. Chu Ping looked at Yu Qianqiu and nodded. Her man was always on the move, and he might face danger often. She felt her heart ache for him. When Xiao Wanqing heard the tender words of the two men, she felt a little worried. Don't spread the news about the limit-breaking pill to anyone else. Just as Yu Qianqiu finished speaking, he heard the faint sounds of fighting from afar. He knew that the troops were training, so he turned to Guan Yu and said, let's go take a look. The long swords on their backs shot out at the same time, and the two of them stepped on their swords and flew into the sky. The three people in front of the ethereal palace watched them leave. In a hilly area with undulating mountains, the two of them stood on their swords and looked down. 6 regiments of troops were fighting in 6 different places, and it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. Yu Qianqiu observed carefully, and found that most of the people from the 6th Bureau who were training were wearing black suits. What was strange was that there were dozens of people in white suits in the middle of the 6 regiments. Yu Qianqiu asked curiously, what's the meaning of this? Guan Yu observed the situation below and said, today's training is to fight with numbers, and to fight with the weak against the strong. Those in white suits are the nascent soul experts of each regiment, and they are to be used as hypothetical enemies. The moment he said that, Yu Qianqiu's interest was piqued. The people below seemed to be in a mess, but under the command of their commander, They advanced and retreated in a measured manner. Be it attacking or defending, they were able to exert their collective strength to the maximum. As soon as the white cloth members made their move, the black cloth members with higher cultivation would immediately come forward to block the attack, while the other black cloth members would seize the opportunity to launch a group attack. Even those with weaker cultivation would be able to release a flying sword to confuse the enemy. After a series of fierce attacks, the white cloth members would be forced to defend themselves. Yu Qianqiu nodded repeatedly and said, "Fighting alone is what hooligans do. This is more like a military battle. You guys finally put in some effort and didn't slack off. I was really afraid that you guys would just eat and drink well every day and just laze around." Guan Yu smiled bitterly and said, "Slack off? You've already pointed at my nose and scolded me. I've even dismissed 2 regiments for you. Who dares to slack off?" Knowing your mistakes and being able to correct them. Knowing your shame will lead to bravery. Not bad, not bad. Yu Qianqiu nodded repeatedly and pointed below. This is exactly the kind of training that is close to actual combat. When necessary, we can allow for casualties. I'd rather have 1,000 elite soldiers than 8,000 mediocre ones. You can pass on my words and tell them directly that I'm the one who said it. In short, all training revolves around winning battles. I don't care what methods you guys use. In short, when I bring out my troops, they must be invincible. Oh right. How often do you guys conduct this kind of actual combat training? Ever since you scolded us that time. The troops have never stopped their actual combat training. Small-scale lightning battles, large-scale chaotic battles, will take some time out every day to conduct it. Sometimes it's during the day, sometimes it's at night. Everyone is constantly trying to find more effective ways to attack and defend. Guan Yu said. Very good. Yu Qianqiu nodded. He thought to himself, this troop that fights every day shouldn't have a problem beating those sects that raise cats. After thinking for a while, he frowned and said, don't be too tense. Every month, give them 3 days of free rest. Got it. Guan Yu suddenly asked again, are you really going to let them take the purple limit-breaking pill? Can't the white one work? He didn't seem to be worried that Yu Qianqiu wouldn't be able to get enough spirit stones. It seemed that he was very confident in his boss's ability to make money. Yu Qianqiu turned around and looked at him. He knew that he was still worried about the side effects of the purple pill. He waved his hand and pointed to the ground. Yunchang, according to our previous method, how long do you think it would take for those Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators to reach the tribulation passing stage? Even if we provide them with enough spirit stones and elixirs to increase their cultivation? At least a few decades, at most a few centuries. But the white limit-breaking pill can increase their cultivation by 1 level in a month. Even if they're all in the early stage of Foundation Establishment Realm, they can all reach the early stage of tribulation passing stage in a year. Guan Yu still wanted to fight for his subordinates. You mean to say that we should stop the troops from training for a year? Then we can take them in stages. At most, we just have to wait a few more years. No. The troops can't stop training for half a month. I won't be using them for long. Yu Qianqiu decisively refused. He waved his hand and shouted, do you know how many spirit stones it will take for all of them to reach the tribulation passing stage? Let me tell you, including their daily expenses, they will need at least 20 billion high-grade spirit stones. Do you think I can raise that much money in a short period of time? Do you want me to take it slow and wait for a few more years? A few years plus a few years, how many years is that? Also, do you really think that everyone here can reach the soul formation realm? Let me tell you, that's impossible. Including you and me. Maybe no one will have that opportunity. Do you think that I'm harming them? Then tell me, if they don't meet us, how many of them will have the opportunity to reach the tribulation passing stage? Not to mention the tribulation passing stage. I'm afraid that half of them can't even reach the nascent soul stage. Guan Yu was silent. He was awakened by the 20 billion high-grade spirit stones. He knew that he was being too emotional. Yu Qianqiu's words were reasonable. In fact, there were some things that Yu Qianqiu couldn't tell him. If he was alone in the cultivation world, he wouldn't need to spend so much effort, and he could live a good life. But his parents were old. Because of him, they were brought to this world that didn't belong to them. They didn't fit in with the people here. The outside world was where they should stay. Therefore, he had the responsibility and obligation to send them back safely, so that they could enjoy their old age. He could wait a few more years, but he was afraid that his parents couldn't. Every time he came back, he would be too embarrassed to meet them. For this reason, he had to control both the cultivation world and the imperial power of the secular world. He had to create a good living environment for the elderly. In fact, it wasn't just that. He had some ideals in his heart. The pillar of the state, General Shi Wenguang's prestige in the Western Army, was irreplaceable. Moreover, he wasn't young anymore. If he waited too long, who knew what would happen? The cultivation world was in chaos. If it calmed down in a few years, it would be even more difficult. Also, Bai Changchun would go to that *T Eastern Holy Land in a few years. He was afraid that the demon domain wouldn't be at ease without the old man guarding it. There wasn't enough time. Chapter 329. After a small argument, the two of them stopped in the air and fell silent. Yu Qianqiu suddenly sighed. Yinchang, do you think that I'm only doing this for myself and not for everyone else? Guan Yu shook his head. No, you're right. I'm just being emotional. It's good that you understand. There are some things you need to know. Yu Qianqiu looked down and said slowly, only when my goal is achieved can I create better conditions for everyone to live better. If I lose the ability to lead them, or if I don't care about them and don't restrain them, and throw them out into the outside world, they won't be able to do anything. Do you believe me? Guan Yu thought for a while and nodded. Indeed, even though this group of people was making a big commotion, if they didn't have Yu Qianqiu's strong support, once they were thrown out into the outside world, they wouldn't even be enough for the righteous and demonic Tao to have a feast. Whether it was supporting Immortal Island that occupied the top spot in the cultivation world or 10,000 demons that dominated the demonic Tao, if any one of them made a move, it would be hard for these people to resist. As Yu Qianqiu said, as long as he was doing well, everyone would be better off. This was the truth. I understand. Guan Yu let out a sigh and suddenly felt enlightened. He asked, what are you going to do? Yu Qianqiu frowned. For now, I'm going to follow what I said before. First, help the old members break through to the early stage of tribulation passing. They put in more effort and deserve better treatment. It's worth it to spend more time on them. For them, I'll just give them the white limit breaking pill. For the others, I'll give them according to their positions and cultivation. See how fast I gather spirit stones. Take it slowly from top to bottom. Noted. Guan Yu nodded. He looked down and asked, do you want to go down and take a look? The battle below was getting more and more intense. Yu Qianqiu took a look and said, there's no need. Let's go to Dongguasu's place and take a look. The two of them rode their swords and left. There was an open space that covered an area of 100 acres, and there were nearly 100 independent courtyards, which almost formed a small town. This was the place for those who already had a spouse to live in. There was also a group of older people led by Dongguasu who lived here. A few hundred meters away from the town was a plain. Figures were busy working in the fields. The thriving and lush greenery showed that the crops here were growing well. A 2-meter wide and 1,000-meter long stone road was paved in the middle of the plain. The construction was quite large, but for Utopia, which had nearly 10,000 cultivators, it was only a matter of a day. The two of them put away their swords and landed in the middle of the road. Yu Qianqiu immediately saw the vegetables by the side of the road. Pumpkins, peppers, eggplants, beans, and so on were piled up in rows on both sides of the road. Yu Qianqiu squatted down and picked up some green peppers. He laughed and said, Yinchang, looks like you've had a great harvest. Look, these are all pollution-free green products. Guan Yu was stunned. He understood the first part but did not understand the second part. He did not know what Yu Qianqiu meant. It seemed like he was ignorant. He could only smile and say, the crops here don't have as many pests as outside, so they're naturally growing well. Ta-ta-ta. A majestic horse galloped over from afar. The two of them looked over and saw that it was Guan Yu's red rabbit. a young man on the horse shouted. Is that Big Brother? Red Rabbit galloped over and suddenly stopped. It lifted its front hooves and stood up on its hind legs. The young man on the horse jumped down. It was Wuxia. Big Brother. Wuxia called out shyly after getting off the horse. Yu Qianqiu looked at him and nodded with a smile. This little guy was a little older and more sensible. He was not as arrogant as before. He asked, "Why did you come here?" "Father and mother were bored, so we came here to help," Wuxia replied. As they were talking, Dong Guisu and his wife came to the road with Yu Changgui and his wife. They walked towards them. Obviously, they had noticed the two of them. The two brothers hurriedly walked over and greeted, "Father, mother." Guan Yu also came over and greeted. In fact, he was older than Yu Changgui and his wife, but he looked younger. This greeting was for Yu Qianqiu's sake. Yu Changgui hurriedly supported Guan Yu and said, "Mr. Guan is too polite." Speaking of which, the first time Yu Changgui saw Guan Yu, he was subdued by his demeanor. That appearance was simply too mighty and extraordinary. Especially when he commanded thousands of men and horses and gave orders. It was the demeanor of a scholarly general. This caused Yu Qianqiu to have a stomach full of complaints. "I'm clearly the boss here." Yu Qianqiu was sizing up his parents who were dressed like farmers and women. Dong Guisu and his wife greeted him and Guan Yu and said, "Greetings, leader, head instructor Guan." Yu Qianqiu didn't want his parents to see people who were older than them being respectful to him. So he felt that he couldn't stay here any longer. Unexpectedly, he was stopped by Mistress Shui and asked a few questions. After he answered perfunctorily, he asked about Dong Guisu and his wife's recent situation. And then he found an excuse to run away with Guan Yu. He originally came here to understand more about the situation. But he didn't expect to run into his parents, so he could only run away in advance. This child has grown up. Even his mother is not willing to be close to him. Shui Ernyang looked at the two streaks of light in the sky, and was a little unhappy. Tears welled up in her eyes again. Yu Changgui frowned and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? The child has grown up and has his own things to do. Do you think he will let you tie him up with a belt every day?" "Mother, I heard from others that our eldest brother is very powerful." Wuxia looked at the streaks of light in admiration. Dong Guisu also laughed and said, "Madam, you don't know, but the leader is the #1 figure in our cultivation world. Who doesn't know Yu Qianqiu?" His wife also comforted him. "Yes, madam, the leader is a man who does great things. He has a lot of things to do. No matter how powerful he is still my son. How dare he not recognize me as his mother?" Shui Ernyang felt very wronged and wiped away her tears. Yu Changgui and Yu Wuqia's faces twitched again. The men in this family, including Yu Qianqiu, were most afraid of Shui Ernyang wiping away her tears, so Yu Qianqiu ran away first. At this time, a violent explosion suddenly came from the distant hilly area, attracting everyone's attention. Dong Guisu looked into the distance and sighed. If only this old man was a few decades younger. They are a group of strong people. The leader is really generous. Yu Wuqiu smacked his lips and his eyes lit up. It must be Chief Instructor Guan's men training again. If only I could be like my eldest brother and the others. But sister-in-law said it's dangerous and won't let me go see. Then he turned to Shui Ernyang and smiled apologetically. "Mother, why don't you talk to sister-in-law? She listens to you the most. If you ask her, she will definitely agree. You're even beating around the bush when asking her to give birth to a grandson for me. Which part of her listens to me? She doesn't even respect me, her mother-in-law. That's right. She can fly around in the sky like a fairy. Why would she respect a mortal like me?" Tears of grievance flowed down Mistress Shui's face again. Yu Wuqiu stuck out his tongue and quickly shut his mouth. "Nonsense. She treats you well every day. When did she ever take you seriously? Do you still have a mouth?" Yu Changgui shouted. Another explosion came from afar, interrupting his words. He frowned deeply. This place was isolated from the outside world, but his son's men were training here all day long. What was his son trying to do? Could it be that there was an emperor in the cultivation world? He suspected that his son was trying to rebel. In his mind, This was the only possibility, so he was always worried. But he had guessed it. Chapter 330. The first house in Utopia was the bamboo house built by Baisuzhen. Now that it had been renovated, there were 3 people living there. Baisuzhen's uncle, Xue Qingkong, and 2 of Yu Qianqiu's disciples, Hongqi and Zhangpeng. Guan Yu and Xue Qingkong had been chased away by a certain someone to take a walk in the bamboo forest. The bamboo forest was quiet, and the ground was covered with bamboo leaves. Occasionally, some of them would fall. This was one of the forbidden areas in Utopia. Without permission, no one was allowed to enter. Yu Qianqiu, who was sitting in the bamboo pavilion, felt a little emotional. He thought back to the days when he was alone with Baisuzhen. At that time, there were only the 2 of them here, and Baisuzhen would play the zither every day. Now things were the same, but people had changed. The past could not be kept, and there were many more things to worry about. Knowing that his 2 disciples had broken through to the foundation-building realm, Yu Qianqiu was very happy. Zhang Peng's innate spiritual root was indeed powerful. Although he was a late cultivator, he had still caught up to Hongqi. After a moment of happiness, he asked, "What techniques have you been cultivating?" The 2 disciples looked at each other respectfully. Hongqi bowed and said, "Master, after junior brother and I broke through to the foundation-building realm, we did not cultivate any techniques. Chief Instructor Guan said that you should be the one to teach us the techniques we should cultivate. No one else has the right to teach us any techniques." Now Hongqi was already a young man. Although he was younger than Zhang Peng, he was the first to enter the sect, so he had the advantage of his senior brother. Yu Qianqiu nodded and smiled. He stood up and walked out of the bamboo pavilion. He paced around the courtyard, deep in thought. The 2 disciples, one tall and one short, followed behind him quietly, not daring to disturb him. After some time, Yu Qianqiu took out 2 jade archives and copied a set of incantations on the spot. He turned around and handed them to Miao Yi and Miao Yi respectively, saying, "This is a set of sword incantations called the Guthyuan sword incantation. When cultivated to a high level, you can control 10,000 swords at the same time to subdue your enemies. After memorizing the technique, destroy the jade archives immediately. You are not to teach it to anyone without permission. Your disciples will remember." "Thank you, Master." The 2 of them took the jade archives excitedly. They had finally obtained the cultivation method they wanted to cultivate. Naturally, they were happy. Yu Qianqiu suddenly flicked his sleeve, and a group of cold lights flew out from his storage pouch. In the blink of an eye, they flew into the bamboo forest, moving as fast as lightning. Despite their speed, they didn't touch a single bamboo. The 2 of them were dazzled by this sight. After the cold lights scattered for a while, they all flew back with a xiao-xiao sound and inserted themselves in 2 rows on the left and right of the 2 of them. After some calculation, there were 10 on each side. Yu Qianqiu turned around and said with a smile, "What I used just now was the Guthyuan sword technique. Both of you can keep 10 of these 20 flying swords for your cultivation." After the 2 disciples thanked him, he said, "There is a tomb behind the bamboo house, and the person buried inside is also your patriarch. Although he didn't teach me anything, he guided me into the cultivation world. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. If there are weeds growing on my grave, you should be diligent in pulling them out. Take it as filial piety on behalf of your master. Your disciples will remember." The 2 of them bowed again. "Your master has many things on hand, and it's impossible for me to stay in Utopia every day. However, from today onwards, I will use my divine sense to contact the 2 of you from time to time. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. There are many cultivation methods hidden in the military camp, and I've collected them all. When you have the time, you should go and take a look. It'll be beneficial for your cultivation. If you need anything, you can ask Instructor Guan to help you." After saying this, Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "All right, I won't say much. Cultivate diligently, and I hope that one day, you'll be able to lend me a hand." He did not say much, nor did he give the 2 disciples a chance to bid farewell. He suddenly disappeared, causing Hongqi and Zhang Peng to look at each other in dismay. Yu Qianqiu teleported to Guan Yu's side in the bamboo forest. He looked at Xue Qingkong, who was wandering in the distance, and said to Guan Yu, "Your subordinate, Gu Qingyun, is quite smart. There's no need for him to stay in the military camp anymore. Transfer him here as well. Let him consume the limit-breaking pill with my 2 disciples, and help them improve their cultivation as soon as possible." "Got it." Guan Yu nodded. He was already used to his sudden appearance. As they spoke, they saw Yu Qianqiu slowly taking out a set of clothes to change into. In the blink of an eye, a servant in black clothes and a small hat appeared before him. He waved at him and disappeared. Guan Yu smiled bitterly. He really did not know what this guy was up to. In the small courtyard behind the National Pillar General's residence, as soon as Yu Qianqiu appeared, he saw Shi Xiaotian sitting cross-legged in the main hall. He was really diligent. Not wanting to startle him, Xiaoqin quietly walked out. With his current cultivation, he was much higher than Shi Xiaotian. If he did not want Shi Xiaotian to notice him, Shi Xiaotian would not be able to notice him. From the back garden to the front garden of the general's mansion, a group of busy servants once again saw the servant who was secretly spreading praises in the mansion, and came and went freely. Yu Qianqiu was dressed like a servant. He ignored the other servants and swaggered on his own path, letting others secretly talk about him. However, a pregnant woman in front of him attracted his attention. She was holding her stomach with both hands, and was being supported by another woman for a stroll. The pregnant woman was Bao Wanshi, and the one supporting her was Si Tuhui. The 2 women turned around slowly and happened to see the smiling Yu Qianqiu. The 2 women were startled. Yu Qianqiu quickly walked over and bowed. "Greetings to the 2 young madams." When he raised his head, he added softly, "Bao Wanshi, I haven't seen you for a while. How did your stomach get big because of Shi Yutian? I will definitely help you teach him a lesson the next time I see him." He swaggered away after saying this. Si Tuhui covered her mouth and chuckled. Bao Wanshi was ashamed and angry, but she did not dare to say anything. After leaving the general's residence, he bought a few sugarcane on the way to the back door of Wanhua Tower. After knocking on the door, a servant let him in. He swaggered to the small courtyard with ease. The sound of the zither coming from upstairs was a little messy. Yu Qianqiu was also a person who knew the zither. He immediately heard that something was wrong. Just as he was puzzled, the sound of the zither stopped. The enchantress of 100 Charms appeared at the window and looked at him with a smile. "Master's wife." Yu Qianqiu smiled and bowed downstairs. His smile was a little awkward. He felt a little guilty every time he came. He did not know what he was worried about. When he went upstairs and pushed the door open, he saw the enchantress of 100 Charms sitting on a chair. She crossed her dazzling white legs and said in a sweet voice, "What a rare guest. I haven't seen you for a long time. Have you forgotten about me, master's wife?" "How would I dare? How would I dare? Disciple is here to visit master's wife." Yu Qianqiu smiled apologetically. "You bastard, where have you been all this time? I almost sent people to search the entire Wuxia Empire, but I did not see your shadow. You are really good at hiding. Tell me the truth. Where have you been hiding?" The enchantress of 100 Charms asked with a smile. However, the way she asked made people's imagination run wild. "Looking for me?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He had always been the one looking for her. This was the first time he heard that she took the initiative to look for him. He could not help but ask, "Master's wife, could it be that something happened?" The enchantress of 100 Charms and the smile on her face disappeared. She said seriously, "Something big might have happened." Chapter 331. What's wrong? Yu Qianqiu found a chair and sat down. A few months ago, 8 demonic sects were massacred. Did you do it? 100 Charm Demon Concubine asked. She knew he did it, but she still wanted to confirm it. Yu Qianqiu had asked her for information about the sects, so he naturally didn't plan on hiding it from her. He nodded and said, "I brought people to do it. What's wrong? Did I mess things up?" 100 Charm Demon Concubine gave him a deep look and said, "You didn't do anything wrong. The 10,000 demons' plan to take over the Yen father and son was destroyed by you. 8 sects were massacred in a row, and the hero caused the entire demonic path to panic. Everyone was worried that they would be the 9th sect, so the entire demonic path put pressure on the 10,000 demons. No matter how strong the 10,000 demons were, they couldn't go against the demonic path. Even if they obtained the Yin father and son's strength, they would lose even more. The 10,000 demons couldn't withstand the pressure, and finally led the demonic path and righteous path to attack. The Yin father and son were in imminent danger, but who knew that someone would help them? Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu relaxed. He didn't want the Yin father and son to be exterminated so quickly. His plan was that the Yin father and son's strength couldn't be exterminated, but they couldn't be exterminated. If the righteous path wanted to watch the demonic path attack, then he would think of a way to provoke them. On the other hand, if the demonic path didn't do anything, then he would provoke them, just like last time when he destroyed the 8 demonic sections. If the Yin father and son couldn't withstand it, then that wouldn't do. He would send out troops to help and drag the demonic path and righteous path down. It also wouldn't do if the Yin father and son were too strong. Then he would help the demonic path and righteous path suppress them. But the last possibility was a bit small. The Yin father and son's strength still didn't have the strength to win against the demonic path and righteous path. In short, whoever was lazy and didn't do anything, he would whip them in the back. And whichever side couldn't take it, he would help that side. He would do his best to make the war last as long as possible. Everyone would be in a deadlock like this. Once his strength had increased, he would come out to fish in troubled waters. Fuck. Is there anyone else who has the same plan as me? Damn it, this is too treacherous. Yu Qianqiu frowned. Who helped the Yin father and son? So you still don't know? The Allure Beauty shook her head. She frowned and slowly said. Nearly 100 experts of the crossing tribulation stage suddenly appeared in the cultivation world. Among them, there are quite a few who are at the final stage of the crossing tribulation stage. The righteous and devil Dao had just attacked the island where the Yin father and son were hiding when this group of experts seemed to descend from the heavens, defeating their combined attack in one fell swoop. The strangest thing was that even though there were so many experts, no one recognized them. It was as if they had never appeared in the cultivation world of the Wuxia Empire. At that time, I even suspected that it was the people behind you. Cough cough. Yu Qianqiu coughed and awkwardly said. Master's wife, you are too imaginative. The Yin father and son wanted to skin me alive. Why would I help them? The Allure Beauty pondered and said. I also don't think so. While everyone was trying to guess the identity of those people, Qiu Wuyuan of the 10,000 demons suddenly remembered the identity of one of the experts at the final stage of the crossing tribulation stage. Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes and asked, who are they? Qiu Wuyuan had traveled to the Dirong Empire outside of the Wuxia Empire in his early years. There is a famous imperial advisor in the Dirong Empire. It is said that his cultivation is very high. Qiu Wuyuan met him by chance. After so many years, he almost forgot about this person. Now he recognized that the expert at the final stage of the crossing tribulation stage was that imperial advisor Dirong. The Allure Beauty said. Ah. Yu Qianqiu was surprised. So the Yin father and son have colluded with the foreign cultivation world? That can't be right. Didn't the cultivation world of the various countries make an agreement that no one is allowed to trespass into the territories of other countries? Otherwise, the various countries will join forces to punish them. There was indeed such an agreement. If it was just the Dirong Empire, it would not be a big deal. However, because Qiu Wuyuan recognized the imperial preceptor, everyone discovered some clues from the clothes of the experts. They were wearing the clothes of foreign countries. These people were obviously from the allied forces of the various countries. Think about it, if the various countries all violated the agreement, then who would be afraid of the agreement? Then what's the use of this agreement? The Allure Beauty said. How could this be? Yu Qianqiu said absent-mindedly. He had not expected something like this to happen, making it difficult for him to carry out his plan. He had finally managed to obtain the limit-breaking pill, and was just about to run out and act arrogantly. Unexpectedly, someone completely unrelated to him had come to join in the fun. Truly, the plan could not keep up with the unexpected. Yu Qianqiu sighed. Master's wife, why did those people come at this time? Do you know what their purpose is? We still don't know what they want, but the entire cultivation world of China is on alert. This is not a local fight, but an invasion by foreign enemies. The Orthodox Tao and the Devil Tao have put aside their prejudice and are discussing fervently. They are preparing to form an alliance to defend against the foreign enemies. At this point the Allure Beauty stood up. Although her clothes were hot and seductive, she didn't look seductive at all. She looked out of the window and said in a sonorous voice, "If a war really breaks out, and the situation is disadvantageous to the cultivation world of China, the Enchanted Palace will no longer hide our power. We will do our best to defend against the foreign enemies together with the Orthodox Tao and the Devil Tao. Although I, the Allure Beauty, am a woman, I will not give up my duty." Yu Qianqiu looked at her and was stunned for a while. Then he slowly nodded. Yes. No matter how our brothers quarrel, it is still a matter of our own family. Even if the bones are broken, the tendons are still connected. Even if we break up the family, we will still have the same surname. Other people come to meddle. Their reasons are nice to hear, saying that they are helping someone, but they all have ulterior motives. Who knows what they are planning? Even if you use your butt to think, you can be sure that they are harming others to benefit themselves. That's right, Master's wife. Are there any movements from those people? After they made their move, they didn't make any movements. It was as if they were worried about something. If I didn't guess wrong. The Allure Beauty turned and looked at Yu Qianqiu. It could be because of you. Because of me? How is that possible? Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He stood up and waved his hands. Master's wife, I really have nothing to do with those people. If you don't believe me, I can swear to the heavens. I didn't say that it has something to do with you. It has something to do with the power behind you. The Allure Beauty explained. Think about it. When it comes to the matter of heroes, the Yen father and son know that they are fakes. But who are the real heroes? There is an unknown power hidden in the Chinese cultivation world. Since those outsiders have colluded with the Yen father and son, they must have found out the truth from the father and son's mouths. Sometimes the power that is exposed is not scary. What is scary is the hidden and unknown power. Occasionally, it is ferocious, but it is hard to see clearly. This kind of power is often the most unsettling, making people not dare to act blindly without thinking. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his nose and smiled. Is the power behind me really as scary as Master's wife says? To be able to loot the Daluo sect's spirit stone mine without anyone knowing and destroy 8 demonic sects in a day. Not to mention, there is an expert at the final stage of the tribulation passing stage. Even if they are not scary, they are not weak. The temptress stared at him with burning eyes and said, Since you call me Master's wife, don't blame me for saying some harsh words. I don't care who's behind you. If the Wuxia cultivation world is in trouble, I won't ask you to pull them out to help, but you're not allowed to be enemies with the Wuxia cultivation world. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving Hao Sansi face. Even if I can't kill you, I'll definitely reveal your background. Think about the consequences. Threatening me. Yu Qianqiu's mouth opened slightly. He was speechless. Chapter 332. Her slender legs, delicate white feet, and crystal round toenails were well groomed. Her feet were almost flawless. The temptress was used to stepping on the smooth mahogany floor barefooted. Usually no one would disturb her in the attic, so it was harmless for her to do so. However, her cheap disciple was a little fascinated by her. At the very least, Yu Qianqiu was currently staring at her jade-like feet. The temptress of 100 charms gently tugged at the red muslin that was trailing behind her thighs and silently covered her half-naked thighs. The red muslin also obscured her jade-like feet. What a beautiful and delicate pair of beautiful feet. They were born with them. Yu Qianqiu sighed in his heart. Usually, a woman with naturally flawless feet would be known as a beauty without looking at her face. On the other hand, if a woman had a beautiful face but mediocre feet, She would either look good with makeup or take good care of her body. Even worse, she would have gone for plastic surgery. True beauties usually had the same head and feet. A woman's appearance could be judged 90% by her feet. This was the experience he had gained from countless experiences in his previous life. With the red gauze blocked, Yu Qianqiu coughed and casually found a topic to cover up the awkwardness. He asked, "Master's wife, why did those people come? It can't be for no reason, right?" China is the birthplace of the world of cultivation. Most of those cultivators who were scattered in other countries were expelled because they violated the common commandments. After a long time, they gradually became famous in other countries. In the past, there were some who thought that they had achieved great cultivation and came back to seek revenge and cause trouble. However, our China's cultivation world is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. How could we let them do as they pleased? They were either killed or driven back. However, this time, I'm afraid they had planned it for a long time. Otherwise, cultivators from other countries wouldn't have come together. Speaking up to this point, the temptress asked, "Do you know why those people were expelled?" Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, "I usually don't care about this, and I've never heard anyone mention it. I don't know." The reason why they were banished was because they coveted the riches and splendor of the world and interfered excessively in the affairs of the secular world. The common commandment of the Wuxia cultivation world is not to interfere in worldly affairs at will. However, most of those who have been expelled refuse to mend their ways despite repeated admonitions. They are still the same in foreign countries. Not only do they confuse mortals and tell them that they are myths, but they also use the pretense of recruiting believers. They say that they are preaching the law, but in fact, it is for their own enjoyment. But because they were in other countries, no one cared about them. Who would have thought that they'd become so powerful that they'd want to attack the Chinese cultivation world? So they're here for revenge? Yu Qianqiu asked. It shouldn't be revenge. Those people who were banished have probably all died long ago. The practice of banishing people who violated the commandments was something that had happened a long time ago. In the past, those who were banished would always come back to cause trouble. So now, people who were found to have violated the commandments were usually killed. If the people who came this time were related to those people from before, they would only be their disciples and grand-disciples. The biggest possibility is that they will return to China to fight for resources, 100 Charm Beauty said. What resources? Yu Qianqiu asked curiously. He thought to himself, if it's something good, I will also get my hands on it. China has a vast territory and a large population. For the cultivation sects, this is a resource. 100 Charm Beauty said. Some people say that the Wuxia Empire has a treasure that was lost in the ancient times. They are here to find such a treasure. A treasure from the ancient times? What is it? Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up again. He was very interested in treasures. I'm not sure. 100 Charm Beauty shook her head and said, I heard that it's a treasure that can make one a god. The ancient war broke out because of this treasure. It was too long ago, and I'm afraid there are only a few people who know the details. Could it be the star pearl that Bai Changchun mentioned? Yu Qianqiu thought to himself. The enchantress of 100 Charms frowned slightly and walked to the window with her bare feet. She looked a little worried. Yu Qianqiu never would have thought that this kind of woman would love her country to such a degree. It was rare for a woman to be like this, and he admired her from the bottom of his heart. His fantasies towards her lessened, and a sense of respect arose within him. He followed her to the window and comforted her. Master's wife, don't worry. It's just a group of tribulation passing stage cultivators. You said that the cultivation world of our Wuxia Empire is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. They won't be able to cause any trouble. Sigh. If it's just this, it won't be difficult to deal with them. The Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons aren't weak either. I'm just afraid that they have more people. Now that both sides haven't made a move, let's wait and see what happens in the future. What about you? 100 Charm Beauty had a trace of worry on her face. When she turned around, it turned into a charming smile and asked, Little Fox, you've been elusive for a long time. What are you doing? Are you up to something again? Can you tell me a little? When he got closer, the beauty's body fragrance made him take a deep breath. Yu Qianqiu pretended to be careless and took a few steps back. He chuckled and said, "It seems like Master's wife is prejudiced against me. I've always been honest and dutiful. What can I do? It's just that Master is watching me tightly, and it's hard for me to come out and walk around." "Get lost. You're honest? Then there won't be any honest people in this world." Hundred Charm Beauty suddenly said in surprise, "Why? You're still in contact with Guan Weiwu from the Fuxian Island. That means..." Master's wife misunderstood again. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and interrupted. "Since the Fuxian Island expelled me from the sect, they wouldn't put me in their eyes. I have nothing to do with Guan Weiwu. Master's wife, please don't associate me with him in the future." At the mention of Guan Weiwu, his face turned ugly. Back then, when he was questioned, he really wanted that master to speak up for him. But in the face of his almost begging gaze, Guan Weiwu remained silent, and on the spot his heart was almost completely broken, making him feel cold and sad. From that moment on, he made up his mind that there was no longer any relationship between them. He seemed to be a strong person, but because of something that others might not care about, he was really hurt. Therefore, he refused to associate him with Guan Weiwu. Hundred Charm Beauty could see that he really couldn't have any relationship with Guan Weiwu. She chuckled and said, "It seems like I've said too much. But it's strange. Could it be that you've acknowledged a third master? What I'm doing is considered treason in the cultivation world, right?" He smiled noncommittally, which could be considered as a disguised admission. The smile on Hundred Charm Beauty's face twitched. Whether it was the righteous path or the demonic path, changing masters frequently was not something that was liked. No one could guarantee that they wouldn't accept disciples who would like their own disciples to acknowledge others as their master, even if it was their own abandoned disciple. After a long period of time, everyone wouldn't have a good impression of such a person. In fact, everyone would despise such a person. Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "Back then, someone in the Wu clan scolded me as the scum of the cultivation world. I think Master's wife also feels that my actions are shameful. But it doesn't matter. I am a thick-skinned person. If Master's wife doesn't like it, you can say whatever you want. This reputation is indeed not good. You can say it to me, and I naturally won't mind. But I advise you to not mention your master in front of others. It won't be beneficial for you to walk in the cultivation world in the future. After all, you have offended some people. In the past, when you acknowledged a second master in the supporting Immortal Island, everyone didn't say anything out of consideration for the supporting Immortal Island. But now that you don't have the protection of the supporting Immortal Island, and you acknowledged a third master, it is inevitable that someone will make things difficult for you. Therefore, if you can avoid mentioning your master, try your best not to mention it." Hundred Charm Beauty's words were from the bottom of her heart. "Some people that I have offended?" Yu Qianqiu let out a cold snort and spoke with a prideful expression. "My master's cultivation is exceedingly profound and unfathomable. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he is unrivaled in the world. Just based on them, they aren't even fit to carry my master's shoes, let alone know about an expert like my master." Such an arrogant tone instantly made the Hundred Charm Beauty's eyes lit up. "Unrivaled in the world? Kid, you can't casually wear this hat. Are you bragging? There might be many experts in the world, but no one dares to say that they are unrivaled in the world. I don't dare to say that I have seen all the experts in the cultivation world, but I have at least heard of the famous ones. Why don't you tell me your master's name? Let me see who is able to be crowned with the hat of unrivaled in the world." Since Yu Qianqiu had mentioned his master, he had a plan in his heart to reveal some information. Mainly, he wanted to ease her heart at this time. Secondly, he wanted to intimidate her and make her feel that he had a powerful background so that she wouldn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Otherwise, he was afraid that with her strong patriotism, she would contribute all her hidden forces to fight against foreign enemies at the slightest sign of trouble. Then how would he be able to grasp the situation of the cultivation world at any time? Moreover, this woman actually said words that revealed his background. This was clearly a threat. Didn't you want to use psychological methods to get information from me? Then let's see who is threatening who now. Chapter 333. Mistress, why do you have to know my master's name? Although my master has a high cultivation base, he is not well known in the cultivation world. Not many people know about him. Even if I told you, you would not have heard of him. There is really no need to tell me. Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly. In his heart he spat. Mistress doesn't know my master's name? What kind of logic is that? Why do I feel that saying this is so awkward? Damn it. He let old man Bai take advantage of him. He had 3 masters and a mistress. Talking about his master in front of his mistress was not a good match. The allure temptress glared at him and shouted, "Little fox, cut the crap. No matter how high your cultivation base is, can it be higher than the final phase of the god's punishment? Even if your master is a reclusive master, I don't believe that he has never been in the cultivation world. If he is as powerful as you say, how could he be unknown? I've been in charge of a sect for many years. As long as it's an expert that's still alive in this world, I'll be able to tell you 1, 2, 3 of them." Mistress, can I not say it? Just pretend that I am talking nonsense. Yu Qianqiu acted like he was in a dilemma. Yo, are you making fun of mistress? The allure temptress smiled and walked closer. She seemed to be up to no good. Smiling, she said, "Little fox, today you have to tell me whether you want to or not. If you dare to lie to me, I will seal your cultivation and strip you naked. I will let the ladies of the 10,000 flower house keep you for 10 days to half a month, and let you go after squeezing you dry. This mistress is so strong." Yu Qianqiu pushed his palms forward and said awkwardly, "Master's wife, please wait. How could disciple dare to deceive master's wife? It's truly because my master hasn't met an opponent that can defeat him since 2,000 years ago. He wanted to be defeated, yet he couldn't. In his loneliness, he lived in seclusion until now. Think about it, how would master's wife know about him?" The temptress was stunned on the spot when she heard this. She blinked her eyes and said doubtfully, "Little fox, are you talking nonsense? Are you confused by the ladies of Myriad Flower Brothel? Or did I hear it wrong? Are you saying that your master has lived for more than 2,000 years? Masteress." Yu Qianqiu let out a long cry and said with a bitter smile, "You didn't hear wrongly. My master is indeed more than 2,000 years old. Just like you said, there are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the cultivation world, but the so-called final stage of passing tribulation is really not a master. At least in the eyes of my master and the others, they are really not a master. More than 2,000 years old, more than 2,000 years old. What kind of cultivation can live for more than 2,000 years? Could it be the legendary soul formation stage?" The muttering 100 charms beauty's body suddenly shook, and her pretty face became somewhat pale as she thought of that impossible possibility. She bit her lips and looked at Yu Qianqiu in bewilderment. "Little fox, could it be that your master's cultivation has already reached the legendary soul formation stage?" Yu Qianqiu solemnly cupped his fist and said, "My master's cultivation has already reached the peak of the final stage of soul formation. For him, becoming an immortal is only a step away." His words were quite frightening. The allure temptress's alluring red lips were slightly open, and she was a bit dumbfounded. After a while, she anxiously asked, "You just mentioned your master and the others. Could it be that there are more than one soul formation stage like your master?" Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, "Of course there are many, but at their cultivation level, almost all of them concentrate on cultivation and don't care about worldly affairs. That's why very few people in the cultivation world know about them." The expression on the allure temptress's face changed, and no one knew what she was thinking. After some thought, she said, 2,000 years is not a short time, but it's not a long time either. With your master's cultivation level, he must not be a nobody 2,000 years ago. Why don't you tell me your master's name? Maybe I've seen your master's name in some ancient records. It's really not convenient to tell you my master's name, and besides... Yu Qianqiu shook his head and bitterly smiled. Besides, my master really didn't leave any big name in the cultivation world 2,000 years ago. He has always been rather low-key. Haha. The allure enchantress suddenly laughed. She pointed at Yu Qianqiu and scolded. You're really a little fox. I was almost fooled by you. Fortunately, I know that you're not telling the truth. You said that your master is invincible, and is at the soul formation stage, but you said he is at the peak of the soul formation stage. Even if what you said is true, you actually dare to say that there are many soul formation stage cultivators in this world? Do you think you can find a lot of soul formation stage cultivators in the market? You want to lie to me, but you don't even know how to prepare a draft. I asked you to tell me your master's name to test you, but you've always been secretive. Little fox, you really are not a good thing. Yu Qianqiu was completely speechless. He really couldn't understand. He had told a lot of lies, but some people believed him, but no one believed him when he told the truth. Who could he tell this to? I can't be too honest in the future. A smile gradually appeared on Yu Qianqiu's face, but it was the kind that looked at an idiot. He sneered and said, in this world, the hearts of the people are higher than the sky. It's understandable that you don't want to be with ordinary people. Master's wife forced me, so I said it. Since you don't believe me, then forget it. Just pretend I never said it. But fortunately, a few people from a certain sect have seen it, and know that I'm not lying. The allure beauty couldn't smile anymore, and asked with a stiff expression, which sect have seen it? Yu Qianqiu said indifferently, Ma Jiugu of supporting Immortal Island, together with 4 late-stage Tribulation Transcendence consecrators, as well as Dongfang Chang Ao and a group of elders, accidentally provoked a soul formation cultivator. In the end, they didn't even see the person's face, but they were all seriously injured by that person's divine sense. They were so scared that they fled in panic. Fortunately, that soul formation cultivator showed mercy. Otherwise, none of them would have been able to return to supporting Immortal Island alive. This matter isn't a secret among the upper echelons of supporting Immortal Island. Maybe the upper echelons of the top 3 sects also know some inside information, but they're just hiding it from the other sections. Is what you said true? The allure beauty cried out in surprise. Using divine sense to seriously injure 5 late-stage Tribulation Transcendence experts, this cultivation was a bit too terrifying. How could she not be shocked? With Master's ability to gather information, it shouldn't be difficult for you to investigate. He bowed and said, thank you, Master's wife, for informing me of the current situation in the cultivation world. Disciple still has important matters to attend to and will visit again in the future. He was about to leave. Wait. I still have something to ask. The allure beauty stopped him and asked doubtfully. This is something only the upper echelons of the top sects know about. How do you know? She didn't know that when the incident happened, Yu Qianqiu was still on supporting Immortal Island. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, it's a coincidence. The person who injured them was my master. If master has no other questions, disciple will take his leave. Your master? Wait. The allure beauty stopped him again in surprise and put on a charming smile. She said, I don't dare to provoke a soul formation cultivator, but it's not easy to meet a soul formation disciple, so I naturally have to ask for some advice. I want to see what peerless skills you've learned from a soul formation cultivator. F***CK. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows. Did this woman want to fall out with him? Before he could say what he wanted to say, he saw the allure beauty's figure flash, and the room was filled with her. She was wrapped in red gauze and surrounded him in all kinds of positions. Chapter 334. The reason why the Enchanted Illusion Palace was called the Enchanted Illusion Palace was that there was a set of famous phantom great technique in the cultivation world. It was said that when cultivated to the extreme, it could transform into thousands of real bodies, making it difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. It was a very unique set of magic arts. And as the current palace master of the Enchanted Illusion Palace, the phantom great techniques cultivation was naturally not weak. Hee charming laughter echoed in every corner of the room. The pink phantom was everywhere, flirtatious, sweet and charming, disturbing people's ears and eyes, making people feel as if they were falling into a gentle land. Yu Qianqiu's eyes slightly narrowed. In his slender eyes, there was a sharp killing intent. In front of him, there were hundreds of enchanted illusion palaces phantoms, all smiling at him. He couldn't tell which one was the real enchanted illusion palace's real body. Master's wife, what do you mean? Yu Qianqiu vigilantly looked around. His tone was a bit cold. Little fox, I don't mean anything else. I just want to see what peerless skills you have learned. The phantoms kept disappearing and appearing, always maintaining 100. The strangest thing was that the hundreds of phantoms actually spoke at the same time, their voices coming from all directions, as if they were all the enchanted illusion palace's real body. But it was impossible for there to be hundreds of people who looked exactly the same. There was only one real body and the rest were all phantoms. Yu Qianqiu carefully looked around. Although the enchanted illusion palace said it lightly, he didn't dare to relax. If the other party had evil intentions, wouldn't he die unjustly? His divine sense immediately filled the whole room. Which was the real body and which were the phantoms, he could easily find out. However, how could the phantom great technique be so easily seen through? Under his divine sense, he found that every phantom could resist the detection of his divine sense, making it impossible to distinguish the real from the fake. The hundreds of charming phantoms giggled and said, "Little fox, do you really think my enchanted illusion palace's phantom great technique is a street performance? You actually used divine sense to detect? This palace's layers of phantoms will not let you easily see through the real body without the same or higher cultivation as this palace." Yu Qianqiu sneered. "I don't care how many phantoms you have, but I don't feel safe right now. Mistress, if you don't stop, don't blame me for being impolite. I'll burn down your 10,000 flower house. At that time, let's see if you can create illusions in the fire." The allure enchantress couldn't laugh anymore. Yu Qianqiu had become famous after the battle outside the 100 Flowers Valley, and he had relied on the world-famous Starflame fire technique. Although she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, the news she had received had confirmed the terrifying power of the monstrous flames. Even the De Luo sect leader's son had been killed, and the sect's elder Zhu Xianxian had to retreat. One could imagine how fierce this little fox's fire technique was. This secluded loft was made of pure wood. So how could it withstand such a fierce flame? The inside of the room was suddenly dyed a cyan color. She saw Yu Qianqiu raise a finger, and there was a cyan flame the size of a candle dancing on it. However, it was this small flame that turned everything in the room a demonic cyan color. "If you don't stop, hee. It seems that mistress plans on rebuilding the 10,000 flower house." Yu Qianqiu sneered, and that cyan flame instantly burst out with a heart-palpitating temperature. The vermilion paint on the furniture quickly melted, and the entire room was immediately filled with the smell of burning wood. If the temperature was just a bit higher, the entire building would be turned into a sea of fire. Cyan-colored flame. The allure enchantress's pupils shrank. There was actually a cyan-colored flame in this world. Could it be some kind of demonic flame? She had previously received news that Yu Qianqiu's fire technique could release a demonic red flame with an extremely high temperature. But this flame was a demonic cyan color. Although the color was different, she could feel the terrifying power contained in that cyan flame. The 100 phantoms in the room quickly merged into one, and the allure enchantress appeared in front of Yu Qianqiu with a face full of anger. She pointed her finger and shouted, "Little fox, you're crazy. If this fire starts, wouldn't my 10,000 flower house be exposed to the entire capital? When that time comes, how would I be able to hide here?" Yu Qianqiu was startled. "Damn it. You're the one who wants to make a move, so do you think I'll just sit and wait for death?" He cursed in his heart, but he had already retracted that cyan flame into his body. It seemed that this woman really wanted to exchange pointers. The high temperature that was emitted in the room actually followed the cyan flame and entered Yu Qianqiu's body. The room instantly recovered its coolness. The enchantress of 100 charms looked around. Seeing that there was no damage, she suddenly shouted again, "Today this old lady must exchange pointers with you. If you dare to use fire spells again or damage a table or chair, this old lady will swallow you alive." As she said that, the phantoms rose again, and the allure enchantresses appeared from all directions. They all stretched out their claws. She no longer said anything, and attacked without any politeness. Yu Qianqiu almost fainted. This bitch's cultivation was originally higher than mine. Since it was a spar, she still restricted me from using fire techniques. How could you say that? The other party had already made a move, so he didn't have much time to think. Yu Qianqiu put his palms together and patted his chest. A blue wave rushed out, bringing with it a dense cold air. Hundreds of ice thorns shot out from the blue wave in an instant, and met the hundreds of Allure Enchantress's claws. Damn it. Fortunately, I've cultivated water techniques. You won't let me use fire, but I'll use water. There was no need to mention how depressed Yu Qianqiu was. If it wasn't for the fact that he still had some use for this 10,000 flower house, with his temper he would have burned it down long ago. At this moment he couldn't tell which was the real body of the Allure Enchantresses, so he simply released a group of ice thorns to deal with them together. What is this? The Allure Enchantress jumped in fright. The ice thorns were smashed into pieces by her claws. The hundreds of phantoms once again merged into one, revealing the real body. However, the ice thorns that were attacking the other phantoms whistled through the air. It seemed that they were going to tear the house down. The Allure Enchantress shouted, "Stop!" Before she could finish, the surging water rushed over and drowned her. A bubble protected the Allure Enchantress. It was her protective aura, otherwise, she would have taken a good bath. The hundreds of ice thorns seemed to have a telepathic connection. Just as they were about to pierce the house, they all flew back and returned to the blue wave. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to tear down her house, so he naturally wouldn't cause any damage. Moreover, this mistress had already warned him. Since she wasn't really going to fall out with him, it was better not to provoke this shrew. In an instant, the whole room was filled with water. All the furniture that could float in the room floated slowly in the water. If one looked from the outside, one could see that not a single drop of water seeped out of the house. The windows were sealed by a pool of water, and no water flowed out. The Allure Enchantress who was inside the protective aura was extremely astonished. She looked left and right at this room that had already become a world of water. She really couldn't imagine how a person's body could release so much water. Looking at the world outside the window through the water, it was crystal clear and had a unique flavor. She didn't know if it was clean to use for bathing. Usually when women saw water, their thoughts were different from men's. Women thought about whether it was clean, and whether they could bathe. Only when they were really thirsty would they consider the problem of drinking. Men, on the other hand, would mostly consider whether it was clean and whether they could drink it. Of course, empress-like hypocrites probably had the same thoughts as women, and had nothing to do with whether they liked to be clean or not. The Allure Enchantress looked at Yu Qianqiu who was leisurely and contented in the water. She said with love and hate, "Damn you! Is this a water spell? So not only do you cultivate fire spells, you also cultivate water spells. Could this be the ability that your soul formation master taught you?" Yu Qianqiu smiled noncommittally. He didn't say yes, nor did he say no. He slowly floated in the water. One of his hands was raised in front of his chest. His thumb pressed against the middle finger that was bent towards the center of his palm. He made a hand seal, and a spherical space formed around him. Suddenly he shouted, "Seal." The whole house seemed to shake along with his shout. The floor and walls of the room made a light creaking sound. The water in the room instantly turned into ice. A block of ice the size of a room suddenly formed just like that. The room immediately became a crystal-like world. The Allure Enchantress was not in the mood to appreciate it. She retracted her protective aura, and felt a dense cold air rushing towards her. She used her hand to touch the curved surface of the ice that trapped her. She was shocked and said, "What a domineering spell. It can actually freeze such a big block of ice in an instant." As she said this, she looked at Yu Qianqiu cautiously and shouted, "Little fox, what are you trying to do?" "Mistress, don't misunderstand. This small amount of ice naturally can't trap Mistress. It's just that Mistress is naturally afraid of heat, and wears so little clothes for a long time. I specially came to help Mistress cool down for a while. Disciple still has some matters to attend to and can't stay for long. I will disturb you again in the future. Farewell." Yu Qianqiu bowed and said with a faint smile. He raised his hand and shot out a green fire dragon. A narrow ice path immediately opened up in the direction of the door. He stepped on the ice wall, and his whole body slid out of the door. A black shadow flashed out of the room, did a few somersaults in the air, and landed steadily on the ground. Yu Qianqiu walked out of the room in a swaying manner. He could vaguely hear the voice of the Enchantress of 100 Charms scolding him. "Little fox, come back here for me, and help me melt this ice." He didn't have much time to waste with this mistress, so he turned a deaf ear to it. The Allure Enchantress released her divine sense and naturally discovered that Yu Qianqiu had walked far away. She was so angry that she gnashed her teeth. With her cultivation, this little bit of ice would not be able to trap her. She could completely shatter it and escape. However, the 10,000 flower pavilion was located in the bustling city of the capital. Such a big movement would definitely attract attention. Moreover, if she did that, the pavilion would be completely destroyed. Looks like this little fox had already calculated this beforehand. "Don't tell me that you can't wait to avoid me when you see me." The Allure Enchantress bit her red lips, and a strand of red silk on her shoulder floated up. It rapidly struck the ice surface, and in a short period of time, a 2 to 3 meter long passageway was created. The Allure Enchantress's figure flashed, and she flew from this passageway to the passageway that Yu Qianqiu had created. She then bent her waist and flew out of the pavilion. The Allure Enchantress angrily looked around, but she couldn't even see a shadow of Yu Qianqiu. She then looked at the frozen pavilion and was slightly stunned. She saw that on the roof of the pavilion, under the sunlight, there was actually a beautiful rainbow that just happened to envelop the pavilion. She couldn't take her eyes off it, and the anger on her face turned into a gentleness that was unique to a woman. The next day, when she came back to the pavilion, she immediately gnashed her teeth in hatred. This pavilion had been roasted by Yu Qianqiu's fire, blistered and frozen. After the ice melted, how could it still be livable? It had to be renovated. Chapter 335. When he returned to the National Pillar General's residence, he saw Shi Xiaotian waiting for him with a face full of joy. Yu Qianqiu looked back and saw passers-by passing by from time to time. He glared at Shi Xiaotian and walked over to bow. "Third young master." Shi Xiaotian came to his senses and knew that he didn't want to be ostentatious in a crowded place. He immediately acted like a young master and nodded. "Follow me." The two of them walked to the back garden. As they walked, Shi Xiaotian asked softly, "Boss, I haven't seen you for a long time. Why didn't you tell me that you were coming? I only knew that you were here when I bumped into the two sisters-in-law. The cultivation world hasn't been peaceful recently, and I've been busy. I'll be going on a long journey soon, so I came back to settle some miscellaneous matters. I don't know when I'll be back again," Yu Qianqiu said. Shi Xiaotian nodded. "Mother heard that you're here, and wanted to pay her a visit." "There's no need. Send my regards to your mother." As they spoke, the two of them arrived at the back garden. Yu Qianqiu suddenly said, "I'm going to your father's place soon. Ask your mother and the rest if there's anything they want me to tell your father. It's best if it's a letter so that it's easier to pass on. Don't worry about me. Go ask them now. I can't stay for too long." "Got it." Shi Xiaotian turned and ran. Although he didn't know what his boss was busy with, he knew that it wasn't easy for his boss to come. Yu Qianqiu walked into the courtyard alone. When he thought about the cultivation world, he couldn't help but worry about the safety of the family. Shi Xiaotian's cultivation was only at the late stage of foundation establishment. The old team members sent to protect the family were also at the nascent soul stage. It wasn't a big problem usually, but it was hard to say now. He had to raise their cultivation as soon as possible. His spiritual perception immediately locked onto Chen Feng in Utopia. He saw Chen Feng and Xiao Wanqing fighting for work, nodding and bowing like slaves. How was he asking Xiao Wanqing to take care of his life? He was clearly taking care of Xiao Wanqing's life. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled bitterly. He sent a voice transmission. "Chen Feng, how many limit breaking pills did you refine? Give me some first." Boss." Chen Feng was taken aback at first, then awkwardly said, I haven't refined it yet. I'll come back tomorrow. Xiao Wanqing saw him talking to the air, and couldn't help but look around blankly. Yu Qianqiu's expression immediately darkened. He disappeared from the courtyard, and appeared beside the two people from Utopia. Xiao Wanqing saluted with some resentment. Leader. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, Since you're with Chen Feng, then you're family. There's no need to be so polite in the future. Hearing this, Chen Feng was quite satisfied and nodded repeatedly at Xiao Wanqing. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and said expressionlessly, Come with me. I have something to talk to you about. Wanqing, wait for me. I'll be there in a while. Chen Feng said and left with Yu Qianqiu. The two of them arrived at Chen Feng's personal alchemy room. Yu Qianqiu immediately turned hostile and shouted, Chen Feng, have you been bewitched by women? You're so careless with such an important matter at hand. Don't tell me there won't be time for the two of you to flirt in the future? I'll warn you today. If you abandon your important matters and stay by a woman's skirt all day, I'll immediately chase Xiao Wanqing out of Utopia. The two of you will never be able to see each other again. Ah. Chen Feng was shocked. However, their relationship wasn't ordinary, so he wasn't afraid that Yu Qianqiu would really do that. However, it was hard to say if his boss was ruthless. He sucked up to him and said, Boss, calm down. I know my mistake. I won't dare to do it again. He understood that Yu Qianqiu was already giving him face by not falling out with Xiao Wanqing and everyone else. Otherwise, with his temper. Humph. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. He walked to the medicine room at the side, and took out a few sets of spirit herbs. With a wave of his hand, a nearly transparent green flame ignited, and he threw in the spirit herbs to quickly refine. His proficient refining technique attracted Chen Feng once again. Not long after, a batch of white and 5 batches of purple limit-breaking pills were completed. Yu Qianqiu stored them in his storage bag. Looking at Chen Feng's disappointed expression, he shook his head and instantly disappeared. Take care, boss. Chen Feng chuckled and waved at the air. Then he exhaled and smiled bitterly. Boss had a lot of things to do. Not only did he have to gather a large number of spirit stones, he also had to run back to refine pills. He really managed his business well. Now that everyone was busy, it seemed like boss was right. He had really been bewitched by women. Chen Feng rubbed his forehead. After coming to his senses, he felt a little ashamed. He turned around and opened the lid of the pill furnace. When Yu Qianqiu returned to the back garden of the general's mansion, Shi Xiaotian was already waiting for him with a few letters in his hands. Seeing him suddenly appear, Shi Xiaotian didn't find it strange at all. He handed the letters over with a smile and said, I heard that you came back very quickly. Other than mother, big brother and 2 sisters-in-law also wrote letters. There's also one for me. Sorry to trouble you, boss. Yu Qianqiu took the letters and threw them into his storage bag. He jokingly said, When did you become so polite with me? It's not like it's my personal matter. I'm just thanking you on behalf of my family. Shi Xiaotian smiled. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and took out the white and purple limit-breaking pills. He placed them on the table and said, Keep the white one for yourself. Give the purple one to the team members who are guarding the general's mansion and Ling Feng, and the other 2. I will bring them here as soon as possible. There's no need to gather so many people now. Otherwise I will go bankrupt. He then told Shi Xiaotian about the effects of the 2 pills and how to consume them. Ah! Shi Xiaotian was surprised. Since there's such a difference between the 2 pills, why are you giving the purple one to Ling Feng and the other 2? That's not very good. Don't be so long-winded. I know what to do. I won't harm them. Yu Qianqiu took out another storage bag and threw it on the table. He sighed. I'm so poor. Here are 10 million high-grade spirit stones. You guys can make do with it. Before he finished speaking, his expression changed. Oh no, Xianping is in danger. Wait for me here. Shi Xiaotian saw that Yu Qianqiu had suddenly disappeared, but he heard his words clearly. His face turned solemn as he muttered, What danger would Xianping be in? In the outside world, Yu Qianqiu was still unable to teleport with his cultivation. If he relied on the mysterious effect of the golden bead, as long as there were coordinates in the outside world that he needed, Utopia would be his bridge to any shore. No matter how far the distance was, he would be able to reach it in an instant. After suddenly sensing Xianping's distress signal, Yu Qianqiu immediately returned to Utopia and disappeared again. Speaking of which, Xianping was a man of few words and was too straightforward. To put it bluntly, he was a one-track mind. After separating from Lingfeng and Beizi, he came to a relatively large city in the Wuxia Empire. On the same day, he met a few orphans with spiritual roots. Thinking that he would definitely need a place to stay when there were more people, he couldn't possibly stay in an inn. That would be too conspicuous. Hence, he was in a hurry to find a house to rent. As the saying went, the land and water nurtured the people of the area. The people here were more arrogant. When they heard that Xianping did not have a local accent, and saw that he was dressed extravagantly, they asked him, "You don't look like a local. Do you need a house urgently?" Xianping replied honestly, "I need it urgently." Hence, there was no problem with renting a house. The price was too high to say anything. Although Xianping was a little slow, he was not an idiot. After all, he had stayed in the capital for a long time and understood the price of goods. How could the rent of such a place be twice as high as in the capital? He discussed with them but to no avail, so he rejected them. In the end, he asked a few houses in a row and found that each house was blacker than the other. It was all because of the landlord at the beginning. The group of landlords worked together to rip him off. Hence, he returned to the first house. The landlord was happy and the price was 5 times higher than before. Xianping was furious and almost hit them. However, he was a little stubborn. Thinking of the rules of the cultivation world, he did not make a move in the end. If it was Lingfeng and Beizi, even if they did not do it openly, they would still teach him a lesson in secret. However, if it was the two of them, they would have just thrown money to rent the house right from the start. Sure, Xiaotian had given them a lot of money. Why would a cultivator care about that little bit of money? Then, there wouldn't have been anything else. Seeing that Xianping wanted to hit him, the landlord flew into a rage and scolded. "What? You're a foreigner and you want to hit me? I say, you're dressed like a dog. Why are you pretending to be rich when you don't have money? You think it's too expensive? There's a rundown temple at the foot of the mountain in the south of the city. If you have the guts, go live there. It's free of charge." Alright, this Xianping was really stubborn. He did not think of any other way, and actually went to live in that rundown temple in a fit of anger. After a period of time, the rundown temple had collected hundreds of orphans with spiritual roots. One day, an orphan was playful and sneaked out of the rundown temple. Because it was at the foot of the mountain, the orphan was bitten by a poisonous snake. When Xianping came back, he found that the orphan was deeply poisoned. With his cultivation, he could not completely expel the poison. At this moment, he thought of Yu Qianqiu. Coincidentally, at this crucial moment, 8 people barged into the rundown temple. When they saw the courtyard full of children with spiritual roots, they were all stunned. When they saw that Xianping was in the middle stage of the foundation building realm, they thought that Xianping was sent by some sect to recruit disciples. Hence, without saying a word, one of them asked Xianping to step aside. That person quickly and efficiently saved the child. Xianping was clumsy and did not know how to express his gratitude. He actually took out a handful of golden amber high-grade spirit stones from his storage bag and stuffed them into the hands of the other party to express his gratitude. This time, the eyes of the 8 people turned green. Their shifty eyes would glance at Xianping's storage bag from time to time. The consequences of being disloyal at the sight of wealth could be imagined. These 8 people were originally herb-gathering disciples of the Deluo sect. They were the kind of disciples that went around collecting spiritual herbs. After the 8 of them exchanged glances, one of them came out to curry favor with Xianping. He asked which sect Xianping was from and how many people came with him. Xianping, this silly goose, actually said that he was a non-sect itinerant cultivator and that he was alone outside. Although he said that, the 8 people did not believe him. Why would a non-sect itinerant cultivator collect so many children with spiritual roots? Moreover, he was so rich. After a few questions, Xianping saw that a few kind-hearted people who helped him did not believe him. In a moment of desperation, in order to prove himself, he actually said that he was an abandoned disciple of the supporting Immortal Island, and that he only succeeded in the foundation-building realm by chance after leaving the island. He was not so stupid that he did not give up on Yu Qianqiu. The herb-gathering disciples of the Deluo sect looked at each other in dismay. They were still somewhat skeptical, but they could not resist the temptation of a large amount of spiritual stones. However, if they made a move here, they were afraid that Xianping's helpers would come. Therefore, they found an excuse to ask for his help, and deceived Xianping into the deep mountains behind the temple. The result was naturally ferocious. Xianping's situation immediately became precarious. Among the 8 people, aside from 2 whose cultivation was lower than Xianping's, the others were all higher than him. Especially the leader, who was in the early stage of core formation. How could Xianping be a match for them? Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu was worried about the 3 people's safety and gave each of them a pile of talismans to protect themselves. Under the encirclement of the 8 people, Xianping used a bunch of random talismans to open a path, and actually killed his way out of the encirclement and fled. However, his body was also riddled with wounds. At the critical moment, he was lucky that he knew to take out the silver ball that Yu Qianqiu had given him and send out a distress signal. However, he wasn't confident and didn't know if it would be of any use. There were core formation cultivators among the 8 people. In terms of speed, Xianping couldn't escape very far. After using up all the talismans he had, he was finally trapped in a valley. Xianping looked around and sadly discovered that Yu Qianqiu had not appeared in time. Just as he was about to fight to the death, he saw a servant in black clothes and a black hat suddenly appear on top of a nearby rock. Such a coquettish and familiar attire. Who else could it be but Yu Qianqiu? Boss didn't lie to me, he really did come to save me. Xianping, who was riddled with wounds and dressed in rags, was so excited that tears almost flowed out. With a trembling voice he loudly shouted, "Boss!" The 8 of them immediately noticed Yu Qianqiu, who was on top of the mountain rock. He was dressed like a servant, yet he had suddenly appeared in the remote mountains. It was too strange. The leading core formation cultivator shouted, "The Deluo sect is handling business. Unrelated people, get out of the way." He discovered that with his cultivation level, he couldn't see through the person's cultivation level and immediately panicked. Thus he used the name of the Deluo sect. The Deluo sect is handling business. Unrelated people, get out of the way? Yu Qianqiu snorted and jumped down from the rock with a sullen face. He walked toward the surrounded Xianping without the slightest scruple, laughing evilly as he said, "Deluo sect? What a great show of power. Hehe. It seems that I and the Deluo sect have an inexplicable fate. I can't even pick a corner and run into them. What a goddamn coincidence." Chapter 336. From his words, he seemed to be an old acquaintance of the Deluo sect. The 8 hesitantly let him pass. In reality, since they couldn't see through his cultivation, none of them dared to stop him. Yu Qianqiu sized up Xianping, who was in rags and covered in wounds, and asked in a deep voice, "What exactly happened?" Xianping was relieved that his boss was here. He angrily glared at the 8 and told them everything that had happened. Yu Qianqiu's eyebrows rose higher and higher as he listened. He coldly looked at the 8 and suddenly snorted. 8 against 1? As expected of the Deluo sect's disciples. How could you do such a thing? You dared to provoke my people, humph. It's your bad luck to fall into my hands. None of you will escape today. The 8 were shocked. They couldn't see through this newcomer's cultivation, and he spoke so arrogantly. He must be an expert. The core formation cultivator took a step forward and cupped his hands. "Senior, please calm down. From your words, you seem to have a deep relationship with our Deluo sect. I believe we mishandled this matter and caused a misunderstanding. I hope that Senior will give face to our Deluo sect and be magnanimous. The cultivation world didn't judge one's age based on one's appearance. They determined that Yu Qianqiu was an expert based on his cultivation. Deep relationship? When Yu Qianqiu heard this, he laughed and teased. You are right. I am indeed very familiar with your Deluo sect. Furthermore, our friendship is not shallow. For example, I am very familiar with your Deluo sect's elder, Zhu Xianxian. The 8 people were pleasantly surprised as they looked at each other. It seemed like they managed to escape unscathed. The leader of the group bowed deeply and said, So it turns out to be Elder Zhu's good friend. We were too rash. Then he nodded to the others. The 8 people bowed together and said, Greetings, Senior. Yu Qianqiu didn't act polite and accepted their greetings. Xianping was a little discouraged. It turned out that boss was familiar with them. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to take revenge. The core formation cultivator smiled and said, Since Senior is Elder Zhu's friend, could you tell me your name? I'll go back and report it. If Elder Zhu asks, it'll be easier for us to answer. He thought this matter was over and wanted to return to the sect. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, It's better not to say my name. If your sect master finds out, he will definitely be furious. Senior, why is that? The core formation stage cultivator asked in confusion. Yu Qianqiu let out a long sigh and said, Back then, I lost control of myself outside the 100 Flowers Valley and killed your sect leader's son, Luo Xiaohan. I even killed a few Deluo sect disciples and scared Zhu Xianxian away. How could your sect leader not be furious when he found out my name? The group of people turned pale with fright after hearing this. The core formation stage cultivator pointed at him and stammered, You're Yu Qianqiu? Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and dusted the crooked hat on his head. He sneered and said, That's right, I am Yu Qianqiu. I didn't expect you to know me. It seems like my name is quite famous in your Deluo sect. With his confirmation, all 8 of them subconsciously took a step back with pale faces. How could the name Yu Qianqiu not be famous in Deluo sect? Ever since he beat up Luo Xiaohan at the Wu clan, everyone in the Daoyuo sect had heard of his name. Afterward, he became even more infamous outside the 100 Flower Valley. He killed Luo Xiaohan and all the disciples, and even the sect elder, Zhu Xianxian, had to avoid him. As a result, the Luo sect became the laughingstock of the entire cultivation world. A humiliation in exchange for Yu Qianqiu's reputation. In a fit of rage, the sect master ordered his disciples to search for this person. Unfortunately, Yu Qianqiu's whereabouts were elusive. Almost no one had ever seen him. Everyone thought that he was afraid of the Deluo sect's revenge and had hidden away in some corner of the sect. Now that the cultivation world had undergone a great upheaval, the Daoyuo sect had put away their thoughts and had almost forgotten about this person. Who would have thought that they would run into this malefic star here? This guy could even scare away a tribulation-passing stage elder, so how could they, with their mere cultivation, stand a chance against him? Uffed. Xianping, who was covered in wounds, couldn't help but laugh. He thought to himself, I thought I wouldn't be able to get my revenge. Boss is so funny. He's obviously the enemy, but he's still trying to be friends. Xianping naturally knew of Deluo sect's status in the cultivation world. Now that he saw Deluo sect's disciples scared of their boss, he felt proud. He didn't follow the wrong person. Yu Qianqiu, don't be so insolent. Hiding in the wilderness and bullying us little disciples is nothing. If you have the ability, come to my Deluo sect. The core formation stage cultivator knew that today was not going to be a good day, so his tone became tough. Yu Qianqiu sneered. Thank you for your warm invitation. Don't worry. Even if Deluo sect doesn't come looking for me, I will. When I come looking for your Deluo sect, it will be the day that Deluo sect's name is erased from the cultivation world. Xianping. He turned around and shouted. Revenge. Whoever hurt you, beat them up. Don't let a single one of them go. My people aren't that easy to bully. They're a bunch of blind bastards. Xianping was a dull person, but people like him always hated evil. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth with his tattered sleeves, he raised his sword and rushed towards a person without hesitation. The heaviest sword wound on his back was caused by this person's flying sword. With his boss backing him up, he naturally had to get revenge. The man fearfully glanced at his fellow disciples to his left and right. Suddenly, he threw away his flying sword, jumped onto it, and turned around to flee. "You're running to the sky." Yu Qianqiu snorted and pointed his finger. A glistening water dragon shot out from his finger and quickly chased after the man. Water. Everyone, including those from the Luo sect, was stunned. They had never seen a spell like this. Before the man could get far, the water dragon wrapped around him and he struggled. The water dragon gradually shrank, and the man's body gradually expanded. His stomach, in particular, was unbelievably big. The man looked like he was in pain. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to call for help, but the water dragon wrapped around him sucked in a lot of water. With a bang, the man exploded. Blood rained down from the sky, along with broken skin and broken limbs. A skinless head fell in front of everyone. This kind of death was a ghastly sight to the group of people, and they were extremely terrified. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, and the scattered water reformed into a water dragon and flew back. However, it was dyed red with blood. Yu Qianqiu frowned. "You ruined my nest of good water." He formed a seal with his fingers, and the blood instantly turned into dozens of cold red icicles. They covered the sky and glared at the people below. "Whoever dares to run will end up like this. My people are not to be trifled with. Behave yourselves and wait to be slaughtered." Yu Qianqiu scanned the crowd and said coldly. Xianping looked at the red icicles in the sky. With the help of his boss, he immediately became spirited. The flying sword in his hand quickly shot towards a person who was in a daze. That person didn't even have the time to react. He didn't even have the time to scream before his head was sent flying by a fountain of blood. His eyes were wide open in the air as he died with grievances. Since they were going to die either way, why would they wait to be slaughtered? The core formation cultivator shouted, "Split up and run. Those who can escape with their lives, hurry back to the sect and let them avenge us." In an instant, the 7 of them jumped onto their flying swords and flew away. "If I can't even deal with you guys, then what the hell am I supposed to do?" Yu Qianqiu sneered. He formed a seal with his fingers, and the red icicles in the air scattered and chased after them. With his nascent soul cultivation, chasing after these people with his icicles was a piece of cake. In all directions, screams could be heard. One by one, they fell from the flying swords in the air. Those who fell were all pierced by the icicles and were pinned to the ground, struggling in pain. Xianping chased after them and chopped off their heads one by one. This silent gourd was really hard to tell, but he was also ruthless. The core formation cultivator, on the other hand, had some skills. A few icicles that chased after him were all smashed by his palm. In the end, dozens of icicles surrounded him, and he immediately smashed a few more. Suddenly, his body trembled, and his chest felt cold. Looking down, he saw an icicle protruding from his chest. Perhaps he knew he was going to die. He raised his head to the sky and howled. Suddenly, his howl stopped, and he fell from the sky like a hedgehog. Chapter 337. The 2 of them returned to the dilapidated temple at the foot of the mountain. A pot was set up in the middle of the courtyard, and a fragrant meat soup was being cooked. A group of orphans were holding large white steamed buns and eating the meat soup with relish. They had made it themselves. Seeing the 2 appear, the group of children stood up. Perhaps it was because they saw Xianping covered in blood. They looked at Yu Qianqiu with fear. They probably misunderstood Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu looked around the dilapidated temple and shook his head at Xianping with a strange expression. This was his nature. It was hard to change. Xianping pointed at the group of children and said, "Boss, they are all here." Yu Qianqiu nodded. "Leave them to me. There's no need to search for more people in the future. Quickly return to the general's mansion. When I'm not here, listen to Shi Xiaotian. Understood?" Understood. After seeing Yu Qianqiu's methods today, Xianping was completely convinced. Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything else. With a wave of his hand, the children in the courtyard disappeared along with the pot of meat soup. Then he himself also disappeared. Seeing that everyone was gone, Xianping immediately took off his clothes and put on a new set of clothes. He didn't stop to rest and flew toward the direction of the capital. This was the good thing about wooden people. They were stubborn. The moment Yu Qianqiu gave them a command, they immediately carried it out. Yu Qianqiu didn't stop to look for Ling Feng and Beizi. After taking in the people they had gathered, he told them what he told Xianping, and returned to the general's mansion. Seeing him, Shi Xiaotian quickly asked, "How is Xianping?" "He's fine. He ran into a group of trash from the Daoyuo sect, but they've been dealt with." Yu Qianqiu walked to the table and drank a cup of tea. He turned around and said, "I've already ordered Ling Feng and the other two to hurry to the capital. From now on, you'll be in charge of the 3 of them and the 10 members in the mansion. Remember to keep a low profile. The cultivation world isn't peaceful at this time." Shi Xiaotian said with an embarrassed smile. "That's not good, right? How can I command them?" Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, "There's no need to say anything more. I've wasted too much time this time, so I don't have time to argue with you. I've already instructed Ling Feng's group of 3, and those 10 team members. Feel free to use them. As for the restriction-breaking pill, arrange a time for them to consume it. Don't say that you can't even do this. There are more important tasks for you in the future." Shi Xiaotian's eyes lit up when he heard that. He had long desired to roam the cultivation world. That way, his cultivation would not have been in vain. However, he was tied down by his family and could not leave at will. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Boss, don't worry, I understand." Let's not talk about this anymore. Your father is probably waiting anxiously for a long time. I still have to go to your father's place. As soon as Yu Qianqiu finished speaking, he disappeared again, leaving Shi Xiaotian looking forward to how he would make his way in the cultivation world in the future. Little did he know that when he truly stepped into the cultivation world, what awaited him would be a baptism of blood and slaughter. In the Western military camp, there were no tents anymore. Instead, there were sturdy and reliable barracks. On the training field, Shi Yintian was wearing his military uniform and personally leading the training of the army. Not far away, on a tall watchtower, Shi Wenguang was wearing a full set of armor as he looked at the elite troops training below. He did not know when this army would be able to display its usefulness. After all, a general without a battle was lonely. Shi Wenguang turned around and looked at the 4 people behind him. These were the cultivators that Yu Qianqiu had sent to protect him. At that time, he did not think too much about it because he wanted to escape from the capital. But who knew that it was easier to invite a god than to send him away? Now that he thought about it, Yu Qianqiu had sent these people. In addition to protecting him, he also had the intention of monitoring and controlling him. If he did not follow Yu Qianqiu's instructions, he believed that if these people wanted to take the heads of him and his father, it would be as easy as taking something out of their pocket. No matter how brave the soldiers in the army were, who could stop them? This Yu Qianqiu was really farsighted. In the face of the sudden incident at that time, besides solving the problem, he actually made people unknowingly become his pawns. Shi Xiaotian looked in the direction of the capital and sighed in his heart. His wife and son were there. He did not know when he would be able to lead the army to the east and reunite with his family. But all of this depended on Yu Qianqiu, who had disappeared from the cultivation world for a long time. He would occasionally come in contact with some rogue cultivators. He had heard of Yu Qianqiu's big actions in the cultivation world. However, he hadn't heard any news about him for a long time. He didn't know where he had gone. "Chief!" Shi Wenguang suddenly heard a shout behind him. It took him a long time to react. He turned around and saw that it was Yu Qianqiu who he had been thinking about. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "General, what are you thinking about? Why are you so lost in thought?" Shi Wenguang did not answer. He cupped his fists and said, "So it's Mr." Taking this opportunity, Shi Xiaotian took a look at Yu Qianqiu, who was still dressed like a servant of his family. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. This guy was obviously a strong person, but he always appeared in front of him with a cowardly look. As the two of them spoke, they leaned on the wooden railing of the sentry tower. As far as their eyes could see, there were no clouds in the blue sky, and the sun was shining brightly. On the vast land, thousands of soldiers and horses were moving in an orderly manner. It was a magnificent sight. Looking at the extraordinary martial arts practice below, Yu Qianqiu sighed. General is really good at leading troops. I believe that General is already prepared to lead the army to the east. A trace of joy flashed in Shi Wenguang's eyes. He threw off his cloak and waved his hand at the people below. He said in a heroic manner, "My millions of soldiers are ready for battle, and we have sufficient provisions. As long as Mr. is ready, we can lead the army to the east at any time. I guarantee that in less than a year, we will be able to conquer the whole of China." Good. Yu Qianqiu applauded. The name of the pillar of the state general is known to the world. Wherever the general points his sword, the army will look down on them. Who dares to stand in his way? Naturally, he will be invincible. But Yu Qianqiu's tone softened a little. He smiled and said, "The time is not right yet. General needs to be patient for the time being. But don't worry, General. The day will not be too far away." Shi Wenguang thought that he had brought good news. But when he heard that, his heart turned cold again. Yu Qianqiu smiled and took out the letter Shi Xiaotian gave him. He handed it over and said, "This is a letter from General's family. I believe it will make General feel better." Shi Wenguang took the letter and shook his head. He sighed. "I wonder when my family will be reunited." Although he said that, he knew that his family was also in Yu Qianqiu's hands. He had no choice but to listen to him. "I almost forgot to tell General a piece of good news. I believe Madam has mentioned it in her letter. But I still want to congratulate General in advance." Yu Qianqiu smiled. "General's eldest daughter-in-law is pregnant. General will be a grandfather soon." "Really?" Shi Wenguang was overjoyed. He immediately found the letter from his wife and read it carefully. Yu Qianqiu did not disturb him. He waved to a few of his men, and they went down the watchtower together. Shi Wenguang read the news that he was going to be a grandfather in the letter. He was overjoyed. But when he saw the date at the end of the letter, he was stunned. Wasn't this letter written today? How did it get here within 6 hours? From the capital city to here, it was such a long distance. He immediately thought of Yu Qianqiu's supernatural power. He couldn't help but gasp. When he came back to his senses, he looked around and saw the 4 bodyguards climbing up again. One of them bowed and said, "General, our leader has some matters to attend to and has to leave first. He asked us to bid farewell on his behalf." Shi Wenguang waved his hand in a daze. He thought, "It's over." My grandson is going to fall into that guy's hands again. Chapter 338. Within the twilight valley of the Fei region, a strange yet majestic blue flame was blazing. Yu Qianqiu, who had left the western barracks, had returned here. This was for no other reason than that he had used up most of the blue fire elemental essence in his body. He needed to replenish it so that he could defend himself if something unexpected happened. Looking up at the azure flames, Yu Qianqiu walked up to them. Stretching out his palm, he circulated the starflame fire art, and dense azure fire elemental energy flowed into his hand. As he was happily absorbing, an angry roar suddenly rang out in his mind. "Fire thief, it's you again!" Startled, Yu Qianqiu looked down into the eye of fire. This voice seemed to belong to the Fei child underground who was not afraid of fire. In his daze, a force cut off his absorption of the fire elemental energy. Needless to say, it was the little Fei down below. Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and coldly snorted. "Little Fei, I'll let you steal it." Without another word, he bent his body and leaped into the azure flames. His limbs spread out as he floated in the flames. The starflame fire art madly circulated, and the fire elemental energy continuously flowed into his body. "What a shameless fire thief, hurry up and stop." The child's voice in his mind immediately began to curse. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to know much about cursing, and only repeated the same few words. How could such words pierce through Yu Qianqiu's skin? Yu Qianqiu didn't even blink as he continued to absorb. He concluded that the person down below couldn't come out, or else they wouldn't just be talking. The child's voice seemed to grow weaker and weaker until it was pleading. "Kind fire thief, I beg you, please don't absorb anymore. If you do, it will be very difficult for my little brothers and sisters to wake up." In the end, the voice slowly faded away. Yu Qianqiu didn't care about the life or death of the Fae. He inhaled until he was full and floated back to the shore. As soon as he withdrew the fire art, 2 azure flames flickered in his eyes. His entire body was filled with vigor, and he stretched comfortably before suddenly disappearing from the spot. When Xiao Chun reappeared, he was already at the sea 50 kilometers away from the fiendish ghost domain. He looked around but did not find anything strange. The long sword on Yu Qianqiu's back popped out. He jumped onto the flying sword and flew out from the craggy rocks towards the southern sea purple bamboo forest. He did not know what Bai Changchun wanted him to do and how long it would take. Therefore, he took the risk of delaying some time, and went back to deal with his personal affairs first. Otherwise, he would never be able to calm down. The vast South Sea was boundless. Birds flew in the sky, blue waves surged to the heavens, and occasionally, whales and sharks showed their backs. Riding on a flying sword, riding on the sea breeze, the blazing sun like fire, the rolling waves of the blue sea, sleeping during the day and rising at night, the bright moon attracting the stars, Yu Qianqiu flew alone above the vast sea for 2 days and nights. He estimated that he was about to reach the location Bai Changchun had mentioned, but he still didn't see that bullshit southern sea purple bamboo forest. He couldn't help but feel a little confused. "Don't play with me. Old man Bai wasn't that humorous." Standing on the flying sword, he looked around with his hand on his forehead like Monkey Sunday. He didn't even see a small island. How could there be a purple bamboo forest? Suddenly, an indistinct white fog in the distance caught his attention. He quickly flew over on his flying sword. When he was in the sky, the vast sea of fog below made his eyes light up. He had stayed on supporting Immortal's island before, and there was a similar island protection formation there. Other than defending against enemies, it also had another function. In the words of his previous life, it was to prevent natural disasters such as typhoons and tsunamis. This was probably the legendary southern sea purple bamboo forest. Damn, I finally found it. It's not fun to go for a ride on the sea for a few days. Yu Qianqiu patted his chest in relief. When he got close to the sea of fog on his flying sword, he circulated his primordial qi and shouted, "May I ask if this is the southern sea purple bamboo forest?" His voice rolled into the sea of fog. After a while, there was no response. Yu Qianqiu wanted to barge into the island protection formation to take a look, but he was worried that it was a killing formation. He couldn't help but wonder if the owner wasn't home, or if his voice was too soft. Thus he shouted again, "May I ask if this is the southern sea purple bamboo forest? Is the owner home?" Ooh. Is there an end to that broken voice? Why are you shouting in the middle of the day? Can't you let me sleep? Leave now, this is not the southern sea purple bamboo forest. A lazy and impatient voice came from the sea of fog. It didn't sound loud, but it made Yu Qianqiu's ears ring. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. What a high cultivation level. Then he was stunned again. After all this time, this wasn't the southern sea purple bamboo forest? Then where would it be? "Senior, since you live here, you must know the location of the southern sea purple bamboo forest. Senior, please give me some pointers. I will be very grateful," Yu Qianqiu politely said. I don't know. Leave, don't disturb my afternoon nap." Just as the lazy voice finished and Yu Qianqiu was feeling gloomy, a girl's voice came from the sea of fog again. "Mister, why are you looking for the southern sea purple bamboo forest? If the reason is reasonable, I can give you a pointer or two." As long as someone knew. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He cupped his fists and said, "I don't have any reason to look for the southern sea purple bamboo forest. I am here under the orders of my master." The woman replied with an "oh" and said, "Who is your master? How do you know about the southern sea purple bamboo forest?" Hearing this, normal people didn't know about this place. Yu Qianqiu replied, "My master's surname is Bai. He lives in the demon region's Shuntian Island." The girl's clear and melodious voice exclaimed, "You're Senior Bai's disciple?" "What? Elder Bai took in a disciple?" The lazy voice immediately became spirited and said, "Zi, let him in. I want to see what kind of person can make Elder Bai take a liking to him." As soon as the voice finished, the sea of fog churned and a passage was quickly opened up in front of Yu Qianqiu. The girl said, "I didn't know you are Elder Bai's disciple. Please don't take it to heart. Please come in." It seemed like these two were very familiar with Bai Changchun. Were they enemies or friends? After hesitating for a while, Yu Qianqiu still flew in carefully along the passage. After all, if he wanted to know where the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest was, he had to ask these two people. After passing through the passage, the surrounding sea of fog disappeared. It was really similar to the island's protective formation. From the outside, it looked hazy, but from the inside, there was nothing blocking it. Yu Qianqiu put away his flying sword and landed on the ground. A girl in purple was already waiting at the side. Yu Qianqiu only took a glance and was immediately attracted. Her beautiful hair was unrestrained, and her face was beautiful, quiet, and dignified. She had a pair of big eyes that were filled with intelligence, and her skin was fair. Coupled with her purple dress, she seemed to have an extraordinary temperament. A simple purple ribbon was tied around her waist, outlining her graceful figure. It was the first time they met, so it wasn't good to be too lecherous. He had to leave a good impression on the beauty. Yu Qianqiu forced himself to look elsewhere. It was fine if he didn't look, but the moment he looked, his face darkened. There were bamboos all around him, and they were purple bamboos that he had never seen before. He was currently in a purple bamboo sea. If someone said that this wasn't the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He was obviously fooled. Chapter 339. A gust of wind blew. The bamboo sea swayed and rustled. A few purple bamboo leaves swirled and flew between the two of them. The lady in purple saw that Yu Qianqiu didn't look good, and seemed to see through his displeasure. She couldn't see through his cultivation, so she bowed and said, "This is the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest. My master is used to being free and unfettered. He doesn't have any taboos when he speaks. If he offended you in any way, I apologize on behalf of my master. I hope you won't take it to heart." With the lady apologizing, Yu Qianqiu's anger was reduced by half. Moreover, this was the purple bamboo forest. That middle-stage demigod must be here. Even if he was angry, he had nowhere to vent. He remembered that Bai Changchun said that Master Nongzhu had a female disciple. This must be the lady in front of him. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Since this is the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest, you must be Master Nongzhu's disciple. The one who spoke before was Master Nongzhu. Yes, Elder Bai must have mentioned it. The lady in purple smiled. My name is Zi. May I know your name? Zi. Yu Qianqiu sized her up and said with cupped hands, Mrs. dressed in purple, you are indeed as beautiful as your name suggests. I am Yu Qianqiu. You are Yu Qianqiu? Zi suddenly asked. Yu Qianqiu was startled and said, Lady Zi, have you heard of me? Zi shook her head slightly and said, I think I've heard my master mention this name before, but that person's reputation in the cultivation world isn't that great. He must have the same name as Mr. Why would Elder Bai accept such a notorious person as a disciple? She then raised her hand to lead the way and said, My master is at the Zhulang Paradise, please follow me, Mr. She then walked gracefully and led the way. Yu Qianqiu followed behind with a face full of suspicion. He thought to himself, Is there anyone else called Yu Qianqiu in the cultivation world other than me? F***ck. How could such an eccentric name have the same name and a bad reputation? No, if I have the chance, I must get rid of this person, lest he ruin my reputation, especially in front of a beauty. Within the bamboo forest, there was a 1-meter wide path that seemed to be paved with cobblestones. The winding path led deep into the bamboo forest. Walking on the small path, the bamboo forest on both sides was so dense that it was almost impossible to see the sun. Occasionally, the sunlight would shine on the thick layer of bamboo leaves, giving off a special feeling. As Ziyi walked past, the scattered purple bamboo leaves on the path automatically drifted into the bamboo forest on both sides. Seeing such a strange scene for the first time, Yu Qianqiu could not help but look around. The purple bamboo was indeed beautiful. Some were slender, some were noble, and some were like the belly of a Buddha. They were probably rare species, and he had to find a chance to transplant some of them to Utopia. Just as he was thinking this, he passed through the bamboo forest. Suddenly, a courtyard appeared in the depths of the bamboo forest. It was purple in color, and was made from purple bamboo. Several houses were connected to each other, and there were even a few bamboo pavilions in between. The layout was very elegant. There was a purple bamboo fence outside, and on the porch archway that was connected to the small path, there was a plaque that was so purple that it was almost black. On it was written Bamboo Paradise. This plaque was most likely made from an old piece of purple bamboo that had been cut in half. In the bamboo courtyard, there was a faint purple aura lingering around. It looked like a paradise on earth. Some unknown birds were leisurely jumping around inside, and they were not afraid even if people came. Yu Qianqiu suddenly noticed a middle-aged man leaning lazily at the entrance of the main house, looking at him curiously with a burning gaze. Yu Qianqiu also looked at him. His first impression could only be described with one word, and that was handsome. Although he looked middle-aged, he was definitely a handsome man. He was tall, neither fat nor thin, just right. He was dressed like a scholar, and there was a purplish-black bamboo flute hanging on his waist. His hair was tied up on top of his head, and his hair was black and shiny. His starry eyes were bright, and his sword-like eyebrows made him look even more heroic. The bridge of his nose was tall and straight, and his cheeks were thin. His slightly thin lips formed a slight smile, and there were 2 dimples on both sides of his cheeks. His face showed a sense of vicissitudes, and it was a pity that it was destroyed by the laziness that he emitted. However, there was no doubt about the special charm of this kind of man. In addition to his outstanding appearance, he was definitely a handsome man. He was a super handsome man, and not a beautiful man. He was the kind of man that even men had to admit was handsome. Yu Qianqiu felt a wave of sadness in his heart. There was actually such a handsome man in this world. How could other men live? This kind of man was a scourge if he went out. He was the kind that specialized in scourging women and young girls. Women would probably fall in love with him once they saw him. A scourge. A big scourge. However, his cultivation was so high that it was frightening. It really made one speechless. Ziyi raised her hand and pointed. "This is my master." Yu Qianqiu took 2 steps forward and bowed respectfully. "Junior Yu Qianqiu greets Mr. Nongzhu." "Don't be so polite." Nongzhu waved her hand casually, and her face released a charming lazy smile. However, the smile froze immediately. She was stunned and asked, "What did you say your name was?" Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and bowed again. "My name is Yu Qianqiu." "Your name is Yu Qianqiu?" Nongzhu's eyes lit up. She left the door frame and walked a few steps down. She circled around Yu Qianqiu and asked, "There is also a man named Yu Qianqiu in the cultivation world." Yu Qianqiu betrayed his master twice, and made a lot of noise in the cultivation world. It is said that he also practiced a set of fire spells. It can be said that he is quite famous, and the cultivation world calls him the scum of the cultivation world. I have secretly looked for him several times, but he is so elusive that even I have not seen him. Do you know him? The more Yu Qianqiu listened, the darker his face became. It turned out that the Yu Qianqiu with a bad reputation that Ziyi mentioned was him. And the person that he wanted to find a chance to get rid of was also him. Damn it! Could it be that my reputation is really so bad that it spread all the way here? Yu Qianqiu's face twitched a little and replied, "I am afraid that the Yu Qianqiu that you mentioned is me." "You are Yu Qianqiu?" Ziyi shouted in surprise. When she looked at Yu Qianqiu again, the expression on her face seemed to be a little disdainful. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. It seemed that he had repeated his name several times. Why did it sound a little strange? Doesn't look like it. Nongzhu shook her head and looked at him carefully. she said. You don't look like the legendary scum of the cultivation world. What's more, Old Bai is used to being serious. It is impossible for him to accept that Yu Qianqiu as his disciple. What evidence do you have to prove that you are Yu Qianqiu? Yu Qianqiu's neck thickened. Then he became discouraged and said dejectedly, I don't know how to prove it. Is it that important whether I am Yu Qianqiu or not? Of course it is important. Yu Qianqiu, whom I have been looking for everywhere, has come to me voluntarily. Of course, I have to verify your authenticity. Nongzhu pinched her chin and said, I have a few questions to test you. If you pass, you can prove that you are Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu felt dizzy. How could he meet such a person? He looked like a decent person. Was there something wrong with his brain? He wanted to find a place to bang his head against the wall. Nongzhu said seriously, Let me ask you, which teacher is Old Man Bai? The third. Yu Qianqiu replied weakly. Ziyi frowned, and her gaze towards Yu Qianqiu was filled with disgust. Yes, that's the right answer. Nongzhu nodded and asked, Which sect did you join first? Kuangsung. Well, that's right. Which sect did you join second? Fuxian Island. Well, not bad. After you joined the second sect, did you do anything wrong to the first sect? No. Well, that's not right. Didn't you kill the grandson of the first sect leader? I did. You didn't kill the grandson of the first sect leader? I did. That's right. The first sect leader was also killed by you, right? It said that there were a bunch of other sect members. I did. He abandoned his own sect to join another sect, and then turned around and killed his former fellow sect members. He even killed the previous sect leader. Don't tell me that doing this is not letting down his original sect? Yu Qianqiu was speechless. It was Kuangsung who did wrong to him first. He never felt that there was anything wrong with what he did. But when this guy asked him, even he felt that he had done something disgraceful, let alone in the eyes of others. Forget it. I don't have anything in common with this psychopath, and there's no need to explain. He shook his head and said, No. Ziyi frowned again. She didn't even look at Yu Qianqiu. Nongzhu's eyes lit up. He nodded and said, Now I believe that you are the scum of the cultivation world. The truth is right in front of you, but you still dare to lie. You are indeed the scum of the cultivation world. Wait a minute. He suddenly asked in confusion. Didn't you tell Old Bai about what you did? Otherwise, how could he accept you as a disciple? Yu Qianqiu wanted to catch this guy and beat him up. But if he did, he would definitely be beaten up. So he gritted his teeth and said, I have told my master about all these things. I didn't hide it from him. That's strange. Did Old Bai change his mind? Nongzhu asked curiously. He thought for a while and shook his head. He probably didn't understand. Then he said, I heard that you have practiced a powerful fire spell. Can you show it to me? It's the best way to prove that you are Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu couldn't stand it anymore. Even if his cultivation was high, he didn't have to torture him like this. He took a deep breath and said word by word in a deep voice, Mr. Nongzhu, what do you want? Did I offend you in some way? Humph. Ziyi snorted. This is not Shuntian Island. No one will be polite to you. Show it to me. Don't make yourself unhappy. It's okay. It's okay. Ziyi, don't talk nonsense. Nongzhu tried to smooth things over. Yu Qianqiu, I don't mean anything. I just heard that you used the fire spell when you were in the core bearing stage and scared away a cultivator in the crossing calamity stage. I'm really curious. I want to see what's so special about your fire spell. I really don't mean anything else. Why don't you show it to me? He had to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. Yu Qianqiu's face turned livid. He said indifferently, Yes, sir. As soon as he finished speaking, he emitted a wung sound, and his entire body emitted a green flame, dyeing the surroundings into a green color. Chapter 340. The sudden appearance of the green light immediately frightened the birds in the courtyard and caused them to scatter in all directions. Yu Qianqiu silently stood in the middle of the fire with his sword behind his back, allowing the green flames around him to wantonly spew out. He himself was like the source of the burning fire, like a dream or an illusion. This scene seemed a bit unreal. Nongzhu and Ziyi were shocked at first, but then they realized something was wrong. The fire on Yu Qianqiu looked strange and fierce, but they could not feel any warmth. After a moment of silence, Ziyi said coldly, "What overbearing fire spell? It looks weak. I think it's just an illusion." Yu Qianqiu turned his head slowly, and his emotionless eyes met Ziyi's. Ziyi's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were so cold. She didn't know that Yu Qianqiu felt that he had been humiliated time and time again, and that he had already reached the critical point of exploding. He really wanted to let her know whether his stellar flame fire technique was just an empty shell. He was so angry that he needed to let it out. "Hey, I heard that the fire you use with your fire art is red. Why is it green?" Nongzhu frowned and said, "Yu Qianqiu, did you not use your most powerful fire spell? Don't hide it. Show me what you're good at, I want to see that." The green fire was stirred. Yu Qianqiu said slowly, "It's not that I want to hide it, but I'm afraid that if I use it, your purple bamboo forest will be destroyed." "Oh." Nongzhu looked around the purple bamboo forest, and then looked at Yu Qianqiu seriously. She suddenly said strangely, "Hee hee. Strange, I can't see through your cultivation. You can't be more powerful than me, can you?" He just noticed it now. Ziyi snorted. "His cultivation can't be higher than Master's." "Master, I was right. He's good at using illusion." "Z, don't talk nonsense. The world is big, and there are many extraordinary people. Old Man Bai is proud and arrogant, and his cultivation base is even higher. There must be a reason why he chose him." After reprimanding her disciple, Nongzhu smiled at Yu Qianqiu and said, "As long as I'm here, I can protect this purple bamboo forest. Yu Qianqiu, don't worry about using your fire spell. I really want to see it." As a cultivator at the middle stage of Huashan, her words were full of confidence. Yu Qianqiu nodded his head slightly, indicating that he would obey the order. He thought to himself, "I must burn this entire purple bamboo forest today, or else I will never be able to vent my anger." Seeing that Yu Qianqiu agreed, Nongzhu's eyes brightened. She retreated with Ziyi and watched Yu Qianqiu's actions. Yu Qianqiu didn't do much. He simply clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking, and he exhaled. However, the azure flames on the surface of his body began to fluctuate restlessly. A wave of scorching heat suddenly spread out. Yu Qianqiu did not say anything and rapidly pushed the temperature to the highest. Today he vowed to let this master and disciple know how powerful he was. Starting from his feet, the ground was scorched black, and it continued to expand. The sudden appearance and rapid change of the temperature caused Nongzhu's pupils to constrict. As if remembering something, she exclaimed, "Twilight Valley's blue flame, it's blue flame. No, it's even more tyrannical than the blue flame." It seemed that he also knew about the demon ghost realm's blue flame. The moment such tyrannical heat appeared, the first to bear the brunt of it were naturally Nongzhu and Ziyi. Ziyi quickly circulated her energy to resist, and a ring of light rapidly formed around her. This was her stellar energy barrier. Normally, for a stellar energy barrier to appear in the form of a ring of light signified that the person's cultivation had reached the final stages of the tribulation. However, the blue flame's heat was far too tyrannical, and Yu Qianqiu was deliberately giving them a hard time. One could easily imagine just how terrifying the temperature was. Ziyi's serene face revealed an expression of fear. Her stellar energy barrier wavered, as if it was about to be destroyed by the invisible heat, but she continued to use all her cultivation and clench her teeth to resist. Nongzhu immediately realized that something was wrong with her disciple and harshly yelled, "Ziyi, quickly retreat. This flame is not something you can endure with your cultivation." Ziyi glanced at Yu Qianqiu with a complicated expression. Biting her lips, she obeyed her master's orders and teleported far away into the purple bamboo forest. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. "Brat, it seems that you really do want to burn down my purple bamboo forest. Fine, let me have a taste of your starflame fire art," Nongzhu said in high spirits, and her face was full of excitement. It seemed that she was the kind of person who had been lonely for a long time and was looking for a fight. However, it seemed a little too much for a middle stage of Huashan realm cultivator to fight an early stage of Yuanying realm cultivator. The purple-black flute on Nongju's waist appeared in her hand. She held it horizontally to her lips, and her slender fingers quickly flicked and pressed down, creating a series of finger shadows. Delili. The clear sound of the flute was like the sound of nature. Just listening to the sound, it seemed to be refreshing. The blue flame on Yu Qianqiu's body fluctuated along with the sound of the flute, but with a cold hum, the fire of the blue flame suddenly increased. The spreading blackness on the ground bypassed Nongju and quickly attacked the surrounding buildings. Just now, he used the high temperature to force Ze to retreat, but the high temperature that he controlled could not get close to Nongju. Therefore, he controlled the strong heat to attack the surroundings, and no longer fought against Nongju. He wanted to see how Nongju could protect the purple bamboo forest. Nongju, who was playing the flute, showed a faint smile on her face. The sound of the flute suddenly changed and became melodious. Yu Qianqiu, who was surrounded by the blue flame, slightly squinted his eyes. He saw that the sound of the flute in Nongju's hand actually spread out in a kind of almost tangible sound wave. It could be seen with the naked eye, and quickly formed a transparent ball in a certain range, blocking the invasion of the high temperature to the buildings and wrapping the two people in it. Yu Qianqiu tried his best to drive the flute, but the strong heat that used to be invincible in the past could not break the sound barrier. Don't steam the steamed buns, fight for your dignity. Yu Qianqiu clenched his fists and made a cracking sound. He straightened his chest and waved his arms, saying, "Ah!" Boom! The blue flame suddenly burst out. He no longer fought against Nongju with the high temperature, but wanted to directly break the sound barrier with the fierce blue flame. In an instant, the transparent ball formed by the sound barrier was suddenly filled with the blue flame. Looking from the outside, it was like a blue ball with a diameter of dozens of meters emitting blue light. Ze, who was in the purple bamboo forest, witnessed all of this and her beautiful face turned pale. The high temperature just now still made her feel a lingering fear. If she was engulfed by this fierce green flame, she really didn't know if she would be able to endure it. In fact, her concern was unnecessary. If she really fought with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, it would be very difficult for him to hurt her. No matter how strong the blue flame was, she couldn't just stand there and let Yu Qianqiu burn her with fire. The strong blue flame could not break the sound barrier. On the contrary, Nongju was still playing the flute with a smile on her face. When the flame was 1 meter away from him, it was difficult for it to move an inch. Yu Qianqiu knew that he was already giving it his all. He couldn't help but bitterly smile in his heart. This soul formation cultivator was truly extraordinary. Just a simple flute and he couldn't do anything about it. If the other party were to retaliate, Nongju really started to fight back. The sound of the flute suddenly became rapid, and Yu Qianqiu immediately felt a strong pressure coming from all directions. The sound barrier ball wrapped in the blue flame was shrinking slowly. It seemed that Nongju was going to send the blue flame back to where it came from. Yu Qianqiu wanted to fight back, but he immediately felt that the blood in his body was swelling, and his ears were buzzing. The blood in his chest seemed to be about to spurt out from his throat. His eyes were red and had a tendency to bulge out. He knew that with his cultivation he couldn't fight back at all. It was time to stop, or he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. In a second, the released strong blue flame was quickly sucked back into his body. Chapter 341. After the blue flame faded, the transparent sound barrier disappeared. Nongju stopped playing the flute and looked at Yu Qianqiu meaningfully. She smiled and said nothing. She held the purple and black flute in her right hand and twirled it between her slender fingers dexterously. Yu Qianqiu even suspected that this was how he got his title of Mr. Nongju. Strange. Strange. You were able to hide the blue flame in your body and control it so freely. It's hard to imagine how you managed to cultivate it. Nongju's face was full of amazement. He then asked, "Does this blue flame come from Twilight Valley?" Yu Qianqiu silently nodded. Senior's cultivation is truly unfathomable. I overestimated my own abilities and overestimated the power of the blue flame. Nongzhu shook his head and smiled. After this test, I knew that you were only at the nascent soul stage. You don't need to take your defeat to heart. It would be strange if I couldn't even suppress you. To say that my cultivation is unfathomable would be an overestimation. In the entire cultivation world, I can't think of anyone with a more unfathomable cultivation than your master. As for the blue flame, it has already transcended the realm of ordinary flames and can never be overestimated. It's not that the blue flame isn't powerful, but that the difference in cultivation between you and me is too great. Oh Baya, did your master ever tell you about the blue flame? Master didn't, but Healy did tell me that this blue flame is one of the legendary 3 true flames. As for the rest, I don't know, Yu Qianqiu said. Healy? Nongzhu muttered and suddenly smiled. Your master accepted you as a disciple. Is he all right? It seemed that he still didn't know that Healy was dead. Yu Qianqiu bluntly said, I already killed Healy. What? You already killed Healy? Nongzhu cried out. After a moment of silence, he didn't ask Yu Qianqiu why Healy had been killed. He only sighed. It's good that he's dead. It's not easy to cultivate to become a human. And you still have to rely on being a human all day. Isn't that tiring? Let's not talk about him. You know this place because your master told you to come here, right? Yes. Yu Qianqiu nodded. Nongzhu smiled bitterly and said, Your master Shifu must be plotting something against me again. When the time comes, he can just leave, but you want me to stay with you in the realm of demons. It's ridiculous. Did he ask you to come and get to know me so that we can get along in the future? Yu Qianqiu nodded, then shook his head and said, Master did say something like that, but this time, he said that he has something for me to do. As for what it is, Master said that when I find you, you will tell me what I should do. Nongzhu, who was shaking her head, was stunned. She held the flute in her hand tightly. After a long time, she looked at Zi, who was standing in the purple bamboo forest. She smiled bitterly again and said, By Changchun, you worry too much, but why do you always drag me down? As your friend, do I have to worry for nothing? I have nothing to say about you worrying about the demon region and pulling me in. After all, I was the one who pulled you in back then. But do you have time to worry about the whole world? This time, you don't even let my disciple go. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu, who was a bit discouraged, immediately became curious. He couldn't help but ask, Senior, what does my master want me to do? At this moment, Zi also walked back and looked at her master curiously. What? Do you want to do it? Nongzhu said angrily. He wants you to die and gamble with your life. Do you want to do it? Damn. Only people with mental problems would do it. Yu Qianqiu subconsciously shrank his head and said with a smile, Senior, you must be joking. How could my master send me to die? Impossible? Nongzhu sneered and said, Then why didn't your master tell you what to do in person, but asked you to ask me? I think he was too embarrassed to tell you. Let me ask you, do you know that your master is going to the East Holy Land? Yes. Healy said that master's lifespan was running out, and he couldn't wait until the next opening day of the Heaven and Earth formation. So master is basically going to go this time. Did your master tell you about the star bead? He did. He said that it was a treasure that even the immortals in the upper world coveted. The owner of it could become a god, and the ancient war started because of it. Nongzhu nodded and said, It is said that there is a solid reason to believe that the star bead didn't fall into anyone's hands, but was left in the territory of the Wuxia Empire. Damn. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, That's not possible. If such a precious treasure was really left in the territory of Wuxia, it would have fallen into the hands of some big sects or masters in the cultivation world. Hehe. Do you think people in the cultivation world of Wuxia don't want to look for it? However, after searching for tens of thousands of years, no one had been able to find it. Hence, everyone treated it as a legend, and no one bothered to find it again. It should be over by now. But a highly respected fortune-teller from the Dirong kingdom said before his death that the star bead would reappear in the Wuxia Empire in 100 years. Hey, now there is something interesting to watch. All the soul-forming stage cultivators from all countries are eyeing the Wuxia Empire. Yu Qianqiu asked suspiciously, Senior, what does a fortune-teller do? How did he convince everyone with just one sentence? It's similar to fortune-telling in the secular world, but he is more advanced. He doesn't hang out with ordinary people, and his customers are all soul-forming stage cultivators from all countries. That old guy doesn't speak easily, but when he does, he never makes a mistake. How can people not believe him? So a bunch of soul-forming stage cultivators came to Wuxia to join in the fun. But your master is also from Wuxia, and he is the #1 soul-forming stage cultivator. If your master doesn't agree, no one dares to come. Damn. That old guy is really awesome. It's an honor to be his apprentice. Yu Qianqiu blinked and asked, what happened then? Then the news that your master is going to the Eastern Holy Land in a few years got out. A bunch of people were prepared to wait for your master to leave before coming. But your master didn't want it. He took the initiative to send out invitations, inviting all the soul-forming stage cultivators to gather in the Eastern Sea. I was the one who sent the invitations. Your master has a lot of face, so no one dared to not go. Even I went. In the end, your master is awesome. Facing several hundred soul formation stage experts from various countries, he actually wanted to force everyone to swear a poison oath. The general meaning was that under the situation where he went to the Holy East Land, and whether he was alive or dead, the soul formation stage experts present were not allowed to personally participate in this matter, and were not allowed to personally visit the Chinese cultivation world. To be honest, although your master is a bit arrogant, this oath isn't too extreme. At least he left some leeway for those people, and didn't completely cut off their hope. But with so many people present, your master is going against everyone alone, so naturally there are people who aren't afraid of him. They've started fighting. Yu Qianqiu asked excitedly. Just imagine a person facing all the top experts in the world. Just this courage alone is enough to make people's blood boil. Zi, who was at the side, also had a strange look in her eyes. When it comes to fighting, I've never seen your master afraid of anyone. Back then, before your master took over the demon ghost region, when he was still in the early stage of soul-forming stage, he dared to look for experts all over the world to challenge, and beat some early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators until they were speechless. In the end, I thought of some ways to restrict your master to the demon ghost region, and your master became the world's #1 expert through fighting. In the sky above the Eastern Sea, Old Man Bai immediately killed 3 people because of a disagreement. What a good temper. Zi suddenly asked, Master, what were the cultivation levels of the 3 soul-forming stage cultivators that Old Man Bai killed? Do ordinary early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators have the guts to do that? Nongzhu asked in reply, and continued with a bitter smile. Later, some soul-forming stage cultivators thought your master was too arrogant. So 16 soul-forming stage cultivators joined forces to fight your master, including 2 early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators. Wow. In that battle, I finally understood what it meant to be the #1 expert in the world. With a flip of his hand he could summon clouds and rain. With a flip of his hand, he could control ice, wind, fire, and water. He could move mountains and drain seas. Even the thunderbolts in the sky were casually turned into heavenly swords by him. It was as if there was nothing in this world that he couldn't borrow. He killed all 16 deity transformation cultivators. Even now, when I think of that scene, my heart still palpitates with fear. In the end, the rest of them didn't dare to cause trouble, and were all forced to swear an oath. Tell me, is your master still human? With such a terrifying cultivation level, how could he still stay in the cultivation world, and not ascend to immortality? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.